Chapter 426. Seeing the great rock slashing down with the demon sword, the spectators from afar all felt their hearts pounding as they held their breaths. With this slash of his sword, even if he died, the Pill Emperor Hall would forever be nailed to the pillar of shame. This day would be recorded in the annals of Granxia's history. Countless silhouettes of the Pill Emperor Hall appeared. They either came from different locations or from the towering Great Hall. All of them stared dumbfoundedly at the silhouette of the great rock in the air. Their bodies were all trembling in fear. Who? A thunderous roar rang out. Abruptly, another constellation manifested in the air. This time around, the constellation seemed to symbolize death. Boundless death astral light cascaded down onto the great rock. Yet the eyes of the great rock were filled with an unyielding resolution. The great rock hated the heavens for being too low when it spread its wings, let alone the Pill Emperor Hall. The great rock let out a mournful cry. The sword followed suit. The 1,000-meter-long gigantic sword, containing an overwhelming sword intent, slashed down from the skies. Even celestial phenomenon ascendants wouldn't dare to block this attack head-on. Luohi stared at the descending sword as her countenance turned ashen. Suddenly she was thinking, was her method of doing things right? If she had fought with her father, not allowing a Mo Qingqing to become the pill body of the old ancestor, and not objecting to the relationship between her and the young man who transformed into a great rock, would the history of Granxia take a different direction? She didn't know. The impact she felt when she saw that sword slashing down was simply too overwhelming. Dragging the sword for 100,000 miles, using his blood to feed the demon sword, transforming into a great rock, using his body to feed the sword, wanting to cleave the Pill Emperor Hall apart. Yet all of this was accomplished by a young man at the Heavenly Dipper realm. He who had sunk into madness no longer cared about the consequences. He didn't care about life or death. So what if he became the enemy of the entire Granxia? In Luohi's entire life, she had never met such a crazy person before. His obsession could shake the heavens. Naturally, other than shock, Luohi was filled with rage and killing intent. This matter had arisen because of her. And now, the Pill Emperor Hall was shamed. If Qin Wentian didn't die today, the Pill Emperor Hall would become the laughingstock of Granxia. How could the Pill Emperor in front of her not be shocked as well? Earlier, when he sensed the might of the demon sword, he had already appeared. But he didn't expect the things that happened after that. The demonic divinity's sacrificial transformation, transforming into a primordial great rock, using his blood as a sacrifice to the demon sword. If he knew this would happen, he, the Pill Emperor, would have disregarded his status and acted to subdue Qin Wentian. But now, it was already too late even if he wanted to subdue Qin Wentian. Not only that, it even alerted another old man from the Pill Emperor Hall, who was in closed-door seclusion at the peak of the Pill Emperor Hall. Pucci, the demon sword slashed down. The majestic Pill Emperor Hall shone with a resplendent light, as though there was a towering might blocking it. However, the demon sword transformed into a primordial great rock, possessing an aura capable of breaking the heavens, let alone a mere Pill Emperor Hall. A crisp cracking sound could be heard as the sword slashed down from the middle. The towering palace hall was split into two. It was actually split into two from the clouds all the way to the bottom. Everything within it was destroyed. Many people in the surroundings of the Heaven Ascension Great Hall stared at the scene in shock. After which, a gust of sword wind gusted by. As soft sounds rang out, numerous silhouettes were directly turned into dust by the sword wind, dissipating with the wind. They didn't even know how they died. A single sword slashed apart the Pill Emperor Hall, causing countless experts to fall. The spectators in the distance were all stifled, staring at the scene in front of them. Their eyes even forgot to move. The Pill Emperor Hall was cleaved apart, split into two. A single sword slashed into pieces. In the 9 continents of Granxia, the Pill Emperor Hall that was ranked within the top 5, the Pill Emperor Hall, was actually cleaved apart by a young man at the Heavenly Dipper realm in the form of a primordial great rock. It was unknown how much of a storm would this sword strike cause in Granxia. In the air, 2 constellations could be seen. One was the constellation of the Pill Emperor, while the other belonged to the ancient experts of the Pill Emperor Hall. When they saw the Pill Emperor Hall being split apart, their long robes fluttered in the wind. The killing intent in their eyes was incomparably terrifying. Die. That old man blasted out with a palm strike as a terrifying imprint of death descended from the heavens. His constellation also radiated a fearsome will of death. However, Qin Wentian acted as though he didn't see it. He brandished his sword in front of him, blocking the attack of his opponent. His body was being scorched by the flames of death, and he was in extreme agony. However, it was as though he couldn't feel it at all. He continued moving forward, dragging the demon sword behind him as he advanced towards the forbidden ground. Everywhere the great rock passed by, sword intent would engulf the heavens and earth. The buildings and grand halls of the Pill Emperor Hall were all destroyed, and those who didn't manage to leave were all slain by the sword might. The Qin Wentian now no longer cared about anything. His huge eyes focused only on the front. The monstrous sword might gathered once again. The Pill Emperor and the old man from the Pill Emperor Hall appeared before Qin Wentian. Their eyes flickered with a terrifying coldness as a destructive might gushed forth from them. The eyes of the great rock stared at the two people in front of him. There wasn't the slightest bit of fear in his eyes. His body once again flew towards the sword. His healed body felt as though it was being sliced open again. Every drop of blood was boiling hot. Boom! The body of the great rock seemed to be on fire. That was the power of his bloodline burning. The terrifying aura of the great rock was rising rapidly, getting stronger and stronger. That aura was already at the peak of the Heavenly Dipper realm, and it seemed like it wanted to break through to the next realm. However, a Heavenly Dipper sovereign was still a Heavenly Dipper sovereign. Without sufficient comprehension, how could he step into the celestial phenomenon realm? The aura of the great rock reached its peak. His bloodline caused the screeching of the demon sword to intensify. On the other side, two celestial phenomenon ascendants gathered the power of their respective constellations. The Pill Emperor's body was covered in 9 colored flames of destruction, while the other celestial phenomenon ascendant condensed a true seal of life and death. The seal of life and death was one of the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia, and it had fallen into the hands of the Pill Emperor Hall. Now, in the hands of a celestial phenomenon ascendant, the death chi radiating from it was sufficient to destroy the heavens and earth, causing everything in the surroundings to turn black. The seal of life and death was a seal of life and death. If one wanted to live, one would live. If one wanted to die, they would die. Once the death seal was unleashed, it could steal the vitality of the heavens and earth. Even if it was the great rock in the clouds, if it was struck by it, it would die without a doubt. The spectators from afar were already numb to the sight of Qin Wentian transforming into a great rock, facing off against two celestial phenomenon ascendants. Everything that happened today would be something they would never forget for the rest of their lives. At this moment, a thought appeared in their minds. They didn't want Qin Wentian to die here. Now that he had transformed into a great rock, if he could survive this calamity, would he be able to break through the skies of Grand Xia in the future? However, it was too difficult for Qin Wentian to survive. Two celestial phenomenon ascendants, existences that stood at the peak of Grand Xia, wanted to kill Qin Wentian. The seal of life and death as well as the 9 colored flames of destruction flew towards Qin Wentian. The destructive energy contained within them seemed to have already sucked away all the life force in this space. However, at this moment, the great rock let out a mournful cry. Its wings flapped violently as its body spun madly, transforming into a tornado. The sword danced along with it. VZ. The demon sword carried with it an unparalleled might as it was flung out by Qin Wentian. Everywhere it passed, the earth was torn asunder. With a thunderous boom, the seal of life and death was shattered, and the 9 colored flames were extinguished. The two ascendants of the Pill Emperor Hall instantly dodged. That demon sword passed right through them. It was unknown where it was heading to. VZ. A raging wind howled, the great rock that had transformed into a tornado vanished, leaving a trail of wind behind it as it sped through the space between the two ascendants. Not good. The Pill Emperor stared at the end of the demon sword as his countenance abruptly changed. Qin Wentian was actually flying towards the forbidden ground. They stepped out, vanishing in an instant. However, it was already too late. The speed of the demon sword was incomparably fast. It was flung out by Qin Wentian with all the strength he could muster. Everywhere it passed, the great hall would be destroyed. The ground would be torn apart, until it collided with the entrance to the forbidden ground. It was rumored that this entrance was the sacred ground of the Pill Emperor Hall. Only some of the more outstanding females from the Pill Emperor Hall would be able to enter. But at this moment, the entrance to the forbidden ground had already been broken apart. The demon sword directly shattered the entrance and continued on its way, breaking through the clouds and shredding apart the aura of the sacred ground, directly piercing into the mountain rampart of the Mountain of Death. The mountain rampart continued to crumble as gigantic boulders rained down from the sky, burying the mountain below. A terrifying aura gushed forth from the bottom of the cliff, shattering the falling boulders into pieces. The two silhouettes as well as the great rock descended at the same time, their speed inconceivably fast. The great rock hovered above the cliff, its talons once again grabbing hold of the demon sword. Its eyes were fixed on the ground below, staring at the bottom of the cliff. Over there, countless skeletons and corpses could be seen everywhere, covering the entire canyon. Over there were also some females. They were all so beautiful, yet they resembled walking corpses. Their aura was slowly being devoured by the skeletons below. Emo Chingcheng was there as well. The instant the eyes of the great rock landed on Emo Chingcheng, the coldness radiating from it was incomparably terrifying. So this is the sacred ground of the Pill Emperor Hall. So many beautiful females with outstanding talent are being used to rear evil skeletons. An extremely cold voice rang out from the mouth of the great rock. At this moment, it wanted nothing more than to destroy this so-called sacred ground of the Pill Emperor Hall. The voice of the great rock drifted through the air, drifting into the ears of those outside the Pill Emperor Hall. When they heard this, their hearts violently pounded. Indeed, at this moment, they could also sense an evil aura gushing forth from there. The Pill Emperor Hall used female disciples to rear evil skeletons? This discovery caused the bodies of many to involuntarily tremble. This was too terrifying. Staring at the majestic Pill Emperor Hall in front of them, the transcendent power of Granxia for thousands of years, the sacred ground of alchemy, a place revered by countless people, was actually used to rear evil skeletons? Not only that, Emo Chingcheng was sent there. The reason why Qin Wentian disregarded everything and rushed in was precisely because of Emo Chingcheng. So it turned out that the reason why the Pill Emperor Hall accepted Emo Chingcheng as their disciple, and why Luo He spent so much effort to nurture Emo Chingcheng, was because of this? The spectators from afar stared at Luo He as though they were looking at a venomous witch. When they thought of that beautiful silhouette that could topple empires, they couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. Such a transcendent power was the hegemon of the moon continent, and was revered by countless people. Was the truth behind all this so cruel? Luo He naturally felt the gazes of the spectators. Her countenance grew incredibly unsightly to behold. From today onwards, the reputation of the Pill Emperor Hall was completely ruined by that young man. Chapter 427. The Pill Emperor and that ancient expert all landed at the edge of the cliff. Right now, their countenances were incomparably unsightly to behold. Qin Wentian had actually disturbed the existence at the bottom of the cliff. Vile creature. A cold voice came directly from the bottom of the cliff. It was so cold that it seemed as if the temperature of the entire space had plummeted. The Pill Emperor and the ancient expert turned their gazes downwards, as deep respect could be seen flickering in their eyes. The two of them bowed. "Ancestor, please forgive us. A mere vile creature actually dared to disturb my cultivation. How are you all going to control the Pill Emperor Hall? Quickly settle this." That voice rang out once more, exuding an unexcelled aura. His voice rang out, echoing through the air. Those who were observing from afar also heard it, and they all seemed to have understood something. That skeleton at the bottom of the cliff was actually an ancestor of the Pill Emperor Hall? Could it be that the ancestor of the Pill Emperor Hall wanted to use some forbidden method to revive? Reviving was a great taboo of the heavens. Hence, the Pill Emperor Hall used Emo Chingcheng and the other outstanding disciples to nurture him, using the lives of so many people in exchange for his revival. Such a method was simply too cruel. However, for the sake of their ancestor, the Pill Emperor Hall would definitely be willing to do anything. Once this ancestor was revived, it was unknown what kind of storm would he cause in Granxia. The hearts of those from the Hua clan, Chang clan, Star-Seizing Manor and the other transcendent powers all trembled. The secrets of the Pill Emperor Hall had never been made known to outsiders. They had always wanted to uncover the secrets within, yet even the most outstanding disciples of the Pill Emperor Hall didn't know about it. Only those at the peak of the Pill Emperor Hall would know about it. Qingcheng. The eyes of Qin Wentian, who was in the form of a great rock, flickered with boundless coldness. He pulled out the demon sword and slammed it downwards, aiming for the bottom of the cliff. The whistling sword intent gushed forth, sweeping everything apart. However, one of the skeletons below seemed to have moved as a pair of evil eyes stared up at the sky. In an instant, numerous chains of darkness abruptly appeared in the center of the precipice. The demon sword slammed down, slamming into the chains. Cracking sounds rang out as cracks appeared on the chains, but they didn't shatter. Qin Wentian had already exhausted too much of his energy. In fact, even his blood was almost completely drained. Right now, the demon sword he controlled had no way to shake this terrifying skeleton. Wentian. Mo Qingcheng inclined her head and stared at Qin Wentian, who was in the form of a great rock. Tears flowed unceasingly down her face. That skeleton was still absorbing her aura. Mo Qingcheng couldn't move at all. Up in the sky, the King of Elixirs and the King of Elixirs slowly walked down. 9 colored flames fell from the sky and burned Qin Wentian's body. At the same time, a terrifying death seal slammed down and landed on the rock's huge body. The body of the great rock trembled violently as it unceasingly coughed out fresh blood, dripping onto the demon sword. The wings of the great rock could blot out the sun, yet it still couldn't withstand the attacks of a celestial phenomenon ascendant. But even so, Qin Wentian could still endure the pain. The only thing he couldn't endure was the fact that Mo Qingcheng's essence was being absorbed by the skeleton. His ice-cold eyes were filled with despair as well as tears. Dumbo, you have to live on well. You have to live on well. A smile that could topple empires suddenly appeared on Mo Qingcheng's countenance. Although her tears flowed down, she was still smiling radiantly. Meeting you, I have no regrets in this life. It's enough. Mo Qingcheng murmured. Her body began to burn up. In the ancient formation, the secret art you obtain should be the demonification art. I've also obtained a secret art that allows me to transform my entire life's worth of energy into a pill. Mo Qingcheng smiled. I didn't want to use it because I knew that you would definitely forbid me from using it. But now I have no other choice. The essence in Mo Qingcheng's body began to combust, and the skeleton below her began to move, devouring her essence at an even faster rate. However, it seemed as though it still had no way to stop Mo Qingcheng. A skeleton crawled up from the ground and stretched out its arms, wanting to stop her. But Mo Qingcheng merely opened her mouth and spat out a resplendent medicinal pill, instantly flying towards Qin Wentian. Dumbo, that's my heart. Mo Qingcheng was still smiling as her body slowly collapsed onto the ground. Qin Wentian stared at the medicinal pill floating in front of him. That pill was in the shape of a heart. The skeleton's arms shot towards the sky. Qin Wentian opened his mouth and abruptly inhaled, sucking the pill into his mouth. However, he didn't swallow it, he merely held it in his mouth. Mo Qingcheng's body slumped onto the stone platform, softly lying there. She was very quiet, with a smile on her face. It was as though she wanted to imprint the most beautiful moment of her into Qin Wentian's memory. Her long hair draped over the stone platform, and tears could be seen flowing down the corners of her smiling eyes. Although she had no regrets in this life. But how could she bear to leave? Dumbo. A thought appeared in Mo Qingcheng's mind. Dumbo, I don't want to leave. I really don't want to. But you have to live well. This voice actually appeared in Qin Wentian's heart, as though it was transmitted through the medicinal pill in his mouth. She didn't want to leave, she still wanted to be together with him. But for him she had no other choice. Roar! The great rock howled in grief as its body slammed into the sword. Fresh blood unceasingly flowed into the sword, disregarding everything else, disregarding its own life. The howls of grief continued unceasingly as the flames on its body continued to burn. The shadow of the great rock appeared within the sword as well. His sharp claws grabbed towards the demon's sword. It was unknown where Qin Wentian got his strength from. A raging wind gusted by as he actually managed to pull the demon's sword out of the ground. His silhouette instantly vanished from sight as he stabbed out with the sword towards that old antique in the air. The countenance of that old antique drastically changed. In the air, Astral light cascaded downwards as he retreated while simultaneously blasting out countless life and death seals. However, at this moment, Qin Wentian didn't care about his own life. He only wanted to take his opponent's life. Bang, bang, bang. The ancient seals shattered unceasingly. It was unknown how terrifying the power of the gigantic sword was. Boundless sword intent lacerated the body of that old antique as fresh blood splattered everywhere. Vile beast! That old antique roared in rage. A gigantic constellation appeared in his palm as he blasted it out. Boom! The demon sword collided with the constellation, causing the walls of the cliff to be torn apart. The two of them were forced backwards, and that old antique expert coughed out fresh blood from the impact. But at this moment the Pill Emperor arrived. 9 colored flames enveloped the entire space, enveloping the great rock within. The great rock screeched in agony. He slashed out with his sword, causing the Pill Emperor to explosively retreat. He stood together with that old antique expert as he stared at the burning Qin Wentian. Die! The great rock howled in grief. He directly pierced the demon's sword into his own body, staining it with his own blood. Poochie! Pulling out the demon's sword, Qin Wentian stared at the two people in front of him. His body revolved madly as he abruptly flung out the demon's sword. The 1,000-meter-long demon sword blazed with blood as it transformed into a beam of light that shook the heavens, shooting towards the two celestial phenomenon ascendants. The countenances of the two drastically changed. They stomped on the ground, causing the earth of the Pill Emperor Hall to tremble as they flew towards the gigantic demon sword. However, they had no way to block it. Boundless astral energy flowed into their palms. They blasted out with their palms as a resplendent constellation manifested before them, transforming into a heavenly rampart that blocked their path, colliding with the demon sword. Gotcha! Cracks appeared on the heavenly rampart as the demon sword pierced through it. Sword might gushed out, lacerating the bodies of the two ascendants. With a thunderous boom, the heavenly rampart was completely shattered, but the demon sword continued forward. Scram! The Pill Emperor and the old antique expert didn't even dare to split apart. Poochie! The two of them coughed out mouthfuls of blood as they were blasted through the air, slamming heavily into the ground. But even so, they managed to block the momentum of the demon's sword. Boom! The demon sword pierced into the ground as the sword intent lacerated their bodies, causing their blood to splatter unceasingly. It was a terrifying sight to behold. Two terrifying existences at the celestial phenomenon realm were in such a miserable state. Their auras fluctuated wildly, and they were so heavily injured that they couldn't even stand up. Their gazes once again turned to Qin Wentian. Right now, Qin Wentian was already covered in blood, and was still being burned by the flames. His 1,000-meter-long body was enduring an indescribable pain, but what he felt was even more heartache. With a thunderous boom, the great rock collapsed onto the ground. Its gigantic eyes stared up at the skies as it spat out a medicinal pill. It still refused to swallow it. How could it swallow Qingqing's life? How could it do this? Tears appeared in its eyes once again. Hate that he didn't have the strength to save Qingqing. Hate that he still couldn't kill the Pill Emperor, couldn't destroy the Pill Emperor Hall. Go kill him. The Pill Emperor lay on the ground, swallowing a medicinal pill as he coldly commanded. Only now did the experts from the Pill Emperor Hall regain their senses. They were all extremely powerful characters in Granxia, yet they were all stunned into a daze by the battle earlier. At this moment, upon hearing the Pill Emperor's command, they all stepped out, moving towards the great rock lying on the ground. Qin Wentian had transformed into a great rock. If they didn't kill him today, the Pill Emperor Hall would be completely wiped from the map of Granxia in the future. But at this moment, an intense spatial fluctuation gushed over. Busy. A flawlessly beautiful silhouette appeared beside the great rock. This silhouette was akin to a celestial maiden, abruptly appearing. With a wave of her hand, an ice-cold snow lotus landed on Qin Wentian's body, extinguishing the flames on his body. She walked to the side of the great rock, and when she saw the eyes of the great rock staring at her, she didn't know what to feel in her heart. Qin Wentian mumbled. Before he died, he saw Qing once again, only to see that Qing didn't say anything. Her hands folded into ancient seals as a fearsome spatial fluctuation gushed forth from her. Her long hair fluttered in the wind as blood seeped out from the corners of her mouth. "Unseal!" A calm voice rang out. Qing-er's body trembled unceasingly as terrifying rumbling sounds echoed out. It was as though there was a terrifying existence piercing through her body, causing her to cough out a mouthful of blood. She coughed out a total of 9 mouthfuls of blood. The experts in the surroundings rushed over, yet they were all obstructed by a formless spatial fluctuation. Qing-er walked to the side of Qin Wentian, placing her palms on his body. Spatial stripping. A fearsome spatial energy swept out. The flames on Qin Wentian's body were forcibly stripped away. She walked to the lower abdomen of Qin Wentian. Her silhouette akin to that of a celestial maiden squatted down and lifted the great rock onto her back. This scene ruthlessly impacted the hearts and souls of the spectators. To think that such a beautiful woman would actually appear, using her delicate body to carry the dying great rock on her back. Trying to escape? A cold intent drifted over from the bottom of the precipice, only to see a sinister arm stretching out unceasingly, grabbing towards Qing-er. The spatial energy around Qing-er shattered as she coughed out another mouthful of blood. Yet she still continued to carry the great rock on her back. In the air, the sound of a sigh could be heard, after which a cracking sound rang out as the skeletal arm directly broke apart. A silhouette with his hands clasped behind his back descended from the skies, hovering in the air above the precipice. Below the precipice, more skeletal arms stretched out unceasingly. However, as the silhouette took a step forward, the sounds of shattering rang out unceasingly. Those skeletal arms were all reduced to dust, causing the entire precipice to tremble. This silhouette had his hands clasped behind his back, yet his gaze was fixed on Qin Wentian, who was on Qing-er's back. In his eyes there was a boundless gentleness, as though he was looking at his own kin. Dragging the demon sword for 100,000 miles, ascending the Pill Emperor Hall alone, sacrificing his blood to the demon sword, transforming into a great rock. Such spirit, it doesn't lose out to you in the past. That silhouette stared at the skies as he sighed in his heart. It was as though there was a deep longing in his heart. His gaze then turned to the great rock, as the gentleness in his eyes seemed to be able to melt everything. Chapter 428. It had been over 20 years. The infant that once lay in his embrace had now, for the sake of the obsession in his heart, disregarding life and death, dragged the sword for 100,000 miles, all the way to the Pill Emperor Hall. What more could he ask for? Staring at the great demonic rock, the countenance of that mysterious figure was still as gentle as ever, filled with deep emotions. He really wanted to act, but he had once promised that he would never act for him. His life had to be walked by himself. Only then would he be able to rely on his own strength to prop up the heavens. Growing up under their protection when he was weak, he would always think of the protection of others, and not to prop up the heavens for them. In the past, just how exceptional was his spirit? How could his children be mediocre? How could they grow up under the wings of others? Today, when he heard that the mysterious figure dragged the sword for 100,000 miles, wanting to enter the Pill Emperor Hall, he came here to take a look. Finally, he saw the shadow of that mysterious figure in that infant. He was happy, gratified. There were too many trials and tribulations waiting for this child. He knew what kind of storms he would experience, hence there were many things that he had to face step by step. Even if he died, he had to face it alone. The path of life was long, and today, he had almost died in the Pill Emperor Hall. But wasn't this also a beginning, the beginning of a rebirth from the ashes? However, although this mysterious figure stood there, it was as though no one could sense his existence. The gazes of everyone were attracted by Qing-er and the great rock. He was like a passerby, and the only one who noticed his existence was the skeletal remains at the bottom of the cliff. More skeletons shattered the cliff and broke through the ground, grabbing at the mysterious man. However, at that moment he slowly turned his gaze and looked at the ground below. With just a single glance, he looked at one of the caves. His deep gaze was filled with cold flames, only to see him slowly walking down the cliff. Every step he took caused the entire cliff to tremble. It was as though this cliff was being enveloped by a mysterious rhythm. Pong, with a soft sound, the cliff seemed to fall downwards. The bones all turned into dust in the air. The figure was still standing with his hands clasped behind his back, staring at a cave abode. His eyes were like sharp swords, and there seemed to be a terrifying rhythm in the cave abode. Boom! Another light sound rang out as the entire cavern crumbled into pieces. Over there, an indistinct silhouette appeared. This silhouette was as handsome as a demon, and actually resembled a young man. His skin was sparkling and translucent, but his eyes were extremely terrifying. He inclined his head and stared at the silhouette in the air as he coldly asked, "Who are you?" As the sound of his voice faded, terrifying chains appeared from the cliff and locked onto the mysterious figure. The terrifying chains wrapped around the mysterious figure's body, and the terrifying evil fire of death started burning. However, the other party continued to slowly descend. He stood with his hands behind his back, ignoring the burning of the flames. Crisp cracking sounds rang out. The chains were broken. The flames continued to burn his body, but they couldn't move his body in the slightest. In the air, a resplendent constellation appeared. Not only did it envelop the cliff, it enveloped the entire Pill Emperor Hall as well. The vast Pill Emperor Hall seemed to be isolated from the outside world. The spectators outside couldn't see what was happening within the Pill Emperor Hall. What's going on? Another constellation appeared? The spectators inclined their heads, their countenances filled with shock. The two paragon-level characters of the Pill Emperor Hall, the celestial phenomenon Ascendant Pill Emperor, as well as an ancient expert, were all injured. Where did this constellation come from? Those from the Chan clan, Hua clan, Star-Seizing Manor and the other major powers had long fled the vicinity of the Pill Emperor Hall, but right now they couldn't see anything. Just now, there seemed to be a faintly discernible supreme might permeating the air. They saw a mysterious figure floating above the cliff. He simply stood there as though he didn't exist. He stood with his hands behind his back, as though he was carrying the entire sky on his back. Who was this person? Why did he come here? Nobody knew. Even Qin Wentian and Qing'er didn't know. Right now, Qin Wentian's consciousness was already blurry. Qing'er was still carrying Qin Wentian on her back. Her beautiful eyes stared at the constellation in the air, as a powerful spatial energy enveloped both her and Qin Wentian. A spatial tempest gusted up. At this moment, she only wanted to bring Qin Wentian away from this place of trouble. Busy. The intense spatial fluctuations were directly broken apart. Qing'er discovered that this space had already been sealed by the constellation in the sky. Even if she used spatial teleportation, she wouldn't be able to leave this place. Cold eyes stared at the sky. She seemed to be extremely angry. "Little doll, you are not bad at all." A voice rang out, ringing out in Qing'er's ears. She was the only one who could hear it. Qing'er furrowed her brows. After which, she stared at the constellation in the air. A lazy silhouette appeared there, casually staring at everything below. He didn't do anything. He merely used the incomparably powerful energy of his constellation to seal the entire Pill Emperor Hall. Who is it? The countenances of the Pill Emperor and that ancient expert turned ashen. They stared at the blurry silhouette in the sky. Right now, they were all heavily injured, and the power of their constellations was being suppressed. They had never imagined that the Pill Emperor Hall would have such a gathering of geniuses today. Other than them, there were actually other terrifying celestial phenomenon ascendants here. Why did they come here? No one replied. The silhouette in the sky directly ignored the question of the Pill Emperor. On the other side of the cliff, the demonic young man also saw the constellation in the sky. His countenance grew incredibly unsightly as he asked, "You still have helpers?" The silhouette in the air slowly descended onto the stone platform. Standing right on the platform Mo Qingcheng was on. He stared at the silhouette of the young man in front of him, as an unexcelled in the world could be seen in his eyes. "Helpers? When you were at your peak condition, killing you was as easy as flipping my palm. Let alone today, when you were on the brink of death, you revived." Only to see that mysterious silhouette slowly stretching out his palm. The heavens and earth as well as the cliff, all of them were trembling violently. A supreme power seemed to be controlling the pulse of the entire heavens and earth, sealing the spiritual chi of the 10 directions mountain for you to absorb. Shatter it, destroy. He clenched his hand into a fist, and a shocking scene unfolded. The entire cliff seemed to collapse, and then explode, transforming into powder and dust. This scene caused the countenance of that young man to turn ashen. He turned his gaze towards the distance, only to see that within the cliff, there were 81 chains that were linked together, emitting cracking sounds unceasingly. Finally, a crisp sound rang out as the chains broke apart at the same time. Everything was turned into dust. Nothing could escape the might of that single clench of his fist. If the Pill Emperor had this level of strength, he only needed to clench his fist, and even if Qin Wentian could control the demon sword, he would still be turned into dust in an instant. There was no way for Qin Wentian to defend against such a level of power. The demonic young man's countenance turned ashen. With a stomp of his foot, the ground beneath him crumbled as boundless energy blasted towards the mysterious silhouette. However, his body actually shot up into the air, wanting to leave this place. Do you think you can escape? That mysterious silhouette clenched his fist. Instantly, the body of the demonic young man shattered into pieces, transforming into a pile of bones. This pile of bones was still frenziedly fleeing, containing a terrifying evil energy within. Destroy! That mysterious silhouette waved his hand in the air. Crisp cracking sounds rang out as screams of misery rang out. That pile of bones shattered. Yet it didn't die and continued to flee in all directions. In the air, a constellation manifested. Resplendent astral light cascaded downwards, landing on that pile of bones. In that space, everything was destroyed under the radiance of the constellation. Every inch of that pile of bones was turned into dust, disintegrated into nothingness. The old ancestor of the Pill Emperor Hall had racked his brains, wanting to be reborn through a skeleton. But now, because of Qin Wentian's presence in the Pill Emperor Hall, he had completely turned into dust, vanishing from this world. That mysterious silhouette didn't leave after killing his opponent. His eyes gleamed with sharpness as he flicked his sleeves, instantly destroying all the evil formations in this area. After that, he slowly turned, staring at the beautiful silhouette lying on the ground. Child, it's been hard on you. Although this silhouette was a peak-level expert, the gaze in his eyes when he looked at Mo Qingcheng was also incomparably gentle. He had personally witnessed everything that happened here from the air. He knew that Qin Wentian dragged the sword 10,000 miles to the Pill Emperor Hall for the sake of this girl. And this girl was also willing to give up everything for him. Before she spat out the pill, there was a look of deep love in her eyes. Who could understand this? She didn't want to die, she didn't want to leave. But she had no other choice. The pill is here. That person inclined his head as he calmly spoke. Instantly, a raging wind gusted by as another silhouette walked over. This was none other than the silhouette on the constellation. He held a pill in his hands as he slowly descended in front of Mo Qingcheng. This pill was condensed from the essence and chi of Mo Qingcheng's life. It contained her heart. You are both good girls. That silhouette placed the pill in front of Mo Qingcheng. After which, the pill entered Mo Qingcheng's mouth. His palms blasted out as the pill transformed into boundless spirit chi that permeated into Mo Qingcheng's body. Since you have treated him like this, we won't let you down. However, in this life of his, he will definitely be able to shake the heavens and earth. If you want to be his wife, you have to have a meteoric rise as well. That mysterious silhouette murmured. After which, he turned his gaze onto the silhouette that arrived later. You send her into the Green Cloud sect. This Pill Emperor Hall is not worthy of this child. Right, it's just that it has been tough on the two of them. That silhouette nodded his head lightly. With a wave of his hand, he lifted Mo Qingcheng up as he soared up into the skies. After which, that mysterious silhouette inclined his head and stared at the skies. His body slowly floated up into the air. An instant later, he appeared in the air above the precipice, staring at the silhouette of Qi, who was still carrying the great rock on her back. His eyes were still filled with gentleness. Good fellow, two such good children actually treat you so well. You are even more blessed compared to your father. In the future, don't let them down. That silhouette murmured. A warm smile could be seen on his face as his eyes flickered with traces of reminiscence. As he laughed, he took a step forwards, and in an instant, the entire Pill Emperor Hall trembled from the force of his footsteps. Chapter 429. As the mysterious silhouette walked forward, The entire Pill Emperor Hall trembled unceasingly, as though there was a mysterious rhythm to it. It was as though as long as he willed it, with just a single thought, he would be able to destroy this transcendent power that had existed for so many years. That mysterious silhouette slowly walked forward, and with every step he took, cracks would appear on the ground. Shattered pieces of bluestone floated in the air, right in front of that mysterious silhouette. Every step he took was the same. At this moment, the hearts of the spectators in the Pill Emperor Hall pounded in tandem with his footsteps. It was as though as long as he willed it, he could shatter the hearts of the spectators with a single step. Such a feeling was incomparably wondrous, inconceivable to those who heard it. How could there be such a terrifying character in the world? But right now the spectators all felt the same way. This mysterious silhouette was undoubtedly a terrifying existence among celestial phenomenon ascendants, and was several times stronger compared to the Pill Emperor. As long as he willed it, he could easily slay the Pill Emperor. Such a character actually appeared in the Pill Emperor Hall, sealing this entire space. "Sir, who might you be?" The Pill Emperor and the other two celestial phenomenon ascendants stabilized their auras as they stood up, staring at the mysterious silhouette ahead. Their eyes were filled with an intense sense of wariness. Even when facing against Qin Wentian, who wielded the demon sword, they only felt that Qin Wentian was akin to a demon, but they were still confident that they could deal with him. However, the person in front of them gave them a feeling that it was impossible for them to contend against him. If they clashed head-on, there would be no hope at all. They would be easily suppressed. "Who am I? Are you even qualified to ask?" That mysterious silhouette continued walking forward, abruptly waving his hands. The Pill Emperor only felt an immense force slamming into his body, causing him to groan in misery as he coughed out a mouthful of blood, his countenance pale white. He inclined his head and stared at the mysterious silhouette, his eyes flashing with rage. He was a lofty Pill Emperor. That mysterious silhouette frowned when he saw the expression on the Pill Emperor's face. He took another step forward as an even stronger pulsating pressure bore down on the entire space. His foot stomped on the ground. This stomp felt like he was stomping on the King of Pill's heart. A loud explosion could be heard as his face turned as pale as a sheet of paper. He almost fell to his knees, coughing out mouthfuls of blood. That silhouette didn't say anything. He only used his heart to tell the Dan King what was arrogance. Showing such an arrogant expression in front of him, he, the Dan King, wasn't worthy. Another one stepped out. Boom! The boundless pulsating energy once again landed on Dan King's body. His body was directly sent flying, and he continuously vomited blood. He was squatting on the ground. His face was completely devoid of blood. However, his heart was extremely tense, because he could clearly feel that the pulsating energy was about to descend upon him again. As long as his opponent took a step forward, he would be injured again. This feeling of helplessness made him despair. Qin Wentian inclined his head, staring at the mysterious silhouette. Ever since the destruction of the ancient Grand Xia Empire, how could there still be such a terrifying existence? Had they been hiding in dynasty all along? The lofty Dan King couldn't even muster the slightest bit of thoughts of resistance. He didn't even dare to look into the eyes of the mysterious silhouette. He was afraid that if he did, he would incur the dissatisfaction of the mysterious silhouette. Another step would trample on his heart. Even the lofty Dan King of the Pill Emperor Hall was in such a sorry state, let alone the others. They had no way to describe their emotions at this moment. They could only stare dumbly at the scene unfolding before their eyes. What happened today had toppled their understanding of the world. The Pill Emperor, who was rarely seen during normal times, was actually crushed into dregs. He didn't even have the strength to resist. Although the Pill Emperor was injured, even if the Pill Emperor was at his peak condition, the result would still be the same. They were all very clear of this point. As for the other ancient ascendant, he didn't even have the courage to resist. Such a character actually came to the Pill Emperor Hall. Who was he here for? Luohi's breathing was ragged. She stared dumbfoundedly at her father, the Pill Emperor, before shifting her gaze onto that mysterious and invincible existence. She discovered that the movements of the mysterious silhouette had halted. Coincidentally, the silhouette stopped beside the great rock Qin Wentian had transformed into. That silhouette slowly turned his gaze onto the great rock. At this moment, the great rock Qin Wentian had transformed into had already fainted due to his heavy injuries. Qing from the start till the end, had her back facing the mysterious silhouette, not saying a single word. She didn't like to talk, she had always been like this. But her actions were always more concise and powerful than her words. Although the mysterious silhouette before her eyes was extremely powerful, Qing gaze was as cold as ever. She stared icily at the mysterious silhouette, as though no one would be able to get close to her. A bitter smile involuntarily appeared on the mysterious silhouette's face when he saw the expression on Qing face. However, although the smile was bitter, it was also warm. This little doll was truly cold. I know you're proficient in the Tao of space. It's my fault for being meddlesome and obstructing you from leaving. The mysterious silhouette gently laughed. I won't act to help him. This is the promise I made to his father. There's no need for you to tell him about what happened today. He has to walk his own path. By interfering today, I've already broken my promise. In the future, he will still be himself. Before he reaches a certain realm, I won't appear before him. The mysterious silhouette slowly spoke. After which, he pointed his finger at the heavens as a hole appeared in the constellation. Go, I believe you can take good care of him. That person continued. Qing gaze was cold. After which, she turned her head as spatial energy enveloped her and the great rock within. However, at this moment, she turned her head back and glanced at the mysterious silhouette. She was still as cold as ever, yet she still spoke, thank you. As the sound of her voice faded, a powerful spatial fluctuation erupted. Together with the great rock, she directly vanished without a trace. A bitter smile appeared on the mysterious silhouette's face when he saw this scene. This girl was truly cold. Even the word thank you was so cold. However, why didn't this coldness make him feel disgusted? On the contrary, it made him feel that she was cute. Maybe in his heart, he had already treated Qing as a junior. But of course, even if it wasn't him, no one would be angry when facing a celestial maiden like Qing. His gaze shifted over, causing the hearts of those from the Pill Emperor Hall to pound as their countenances turned as pale as paper. The promise he made to Qin Wentian's father? This mysterious silhouette really came here for Qin Wentian. This person actually knew Qin Wentian's father. Luo, he didn't know what she was feeling in her heart. Did Qin Wentian really have no background? Maybe. His background was so terrifying that even the Pill Emperor Hall didn't dare to imagine it. Luo, he suddenly discovered that not only was she wrong, she was wrong beyond reason. She almost had the chance to change the fate of the Pill Emperor Hall. Do any of you know who he is? That silhouette was still as carefree as ever. His body floated in the air as he stared down at the crowd with disdain. The him now was completely different from the him when he was facing Qing. When he was facing Qing, he was as gentle as an elder. But at this moment he was unexcelled in the world, standing with his hands clasped behind his back. The entire Pill Emperor Hall was nothing in his eyes. He asked, do any of you know who he is? This he was naturally referring to Qin Wentian. Naturally they didn't know. At this moment, they were all guessing that Qin Wentian might be the son of an old friend of the mysterious silhouette. However, the voice of the mysterious silhouette caused their hearts to tremble as their bodies trembled uncontrollably. He is my young master. The silhouette of this mysterious silhouette was extremely light, so light that if one didn't pay close attention, they wouldn't be able to hear it. But this casual voice was like a bolt of lightning striking down from a clear sky. Qin Wentian was his young master. What sort of status was this? Being addressed as young master, one could very well imagine what sort of status Qin Wentian's father had. Such an expert was a terrifying existence that could look down on the entire Pill Emperor Hall. He stood there, unexcelled in the world, disdainfully looking down on the people of the Pill Emperor Hall, yet he referred to Qin Wentian as his young master. And before this, when Qin Wentian ascended to the Pill Emperor Hall alone, he was completely disregarded by them. Despite his outstanding talent, he wasn't given sufficient attention. Why? Because Qin Wentian didn't have a powerful background. They felt that everything that belonged to Qin Wentian could be snatched away by them. And a fallen genius wasn't a true genius. As for the Pill Emperor Hall, they were lofty and lofty, who would dare to question them? But reality was just so shocking. The things that happened in a single day felt as long as a lifetime, enough to be engraved in one's mind. Luohi's eyes turned sluggish as she stared dumbfoundedly at that powerful silhouette. He referred to Qin Wentian as young master, and she originally had a chance to make Qin Wentian her junior, becoming the lover of her disciple. Not only did she ruin such an opportunity, she even caused Qin Wentian to completely stand against her. Such a feeling, no one would be able to understand it. A sense of terror enveloped the entire Pill Emperor Hall. The reason why Qin Wentian ended up in such a miserable state today was undoubtedly because of the Pill Emperor Hall. In that case, how would this person deal with the Pill Emperor Hall? As though he could sense their fear, that mysterious expert inclined his head and stared at the skies. It was as though in his eyes, the Pill Emperor Hall didn't exist at all. He was filled with disdain, disdainful of the Pill Emperor Hall. "I won't kill you all." That mysterious expert spoke once more, causing everyone to heave a sigh of relief. However, if the matters today were to be leaked out, I dare to guarantee that the Pill Emperor Hall would be annihilated from the face of Grand Xia, completely erased from the face of Grand Xia. That expert spoke once more, his words causing the hearts of everyone to tremble. Naturally, they wouldn't doubt the strength of this mysterious expert. As for your lives, that is the path he should walk. I won't walk it in his place. For the next period of time, you all will have to spend it in torment, waiting for the revenge of the Pill Emperor Hall. That mysterious expert continued soaring up into the skies, his gaze fixed onto the demon sword embedded in the center of the Pill Emperor Hall. The demon sword shall remain here. When he descends once more and plucks out the demon sword, that day shall be the day of judgment for the Pill Emperor Hall. The song of victory belonging to him shall also be played. As the sound of his voice faded away, the constellations in the Pill Emperor Hall dissipated in an instant. When they inclined their heads again, that silhouette had already vanished. Only that unexcelled figure was left behind, unable to be erased from their hearts. That final voice he left behind reverberated for a very long time within the Pill Emperor Hall, resounding in the hearts of everyone. When he descends once more and plucks out the demon sword, that day shall be the day of judgment for the Pill Emperor Hall. The song of victory belonging to him shall also be played. Chapter 430. The Pill Emperor Hall. One of the transcendent powers of Grand Xia. It was the king of the Moon Continent, a power with the celestial phenomenon ascendant as its base. In the Grand Xia Empire, this place was considered a sacred ground for alchemy, and was worshipped by countless people. Those from the Pill Emperor Hall were all lofty existences, standing at the top of the 99 steps, gazing down disdainfully at the masses. In the Moon Continent, when they moved about, they would always have their heads inclined upwards. It was always others who stared up at them from the ground. But today, at this moment, those who were still alive in the Pill Emperor Hall were all inclined their heads upwards, staring at the disappearing constellation in the air. The sunlight cascaded downwards, yet their heads were still inclined upwards, as though they were in a daze. Their hearts were still pounding furiously. Earlier, everything that happened in the Pill Emperor Hall seemed very short, but to them it felt like an eternity, so long that it would leave a mark in their hearts for the rest of their lives. Even for the Pill Emperor, his heart was in a mess right now. His gaze was no longer as spirited as before. He still remembered back then when he walked down from the majestic hall, how imposing and unexcelled he was, exuding the aura of the number one character in this world. But now his brows were tightly furrowed, and his robes were tattered, stained with traces of blood. Today, the supreme existence of the Pill Emperor Hall finally understood what it meant by "there's always someone stronger than the heavens." Qin Wentian had left him an unforgettable experience. And at this moment, those spectating from afar were all filled with bewilderment and shock as they stared at the ancient Great Hall. The demon sword was still there, embedded into the Pill Emperor Hall. Sword intent permeated the air, and as for the towering Great Hall, it had long been split into two by the demon sword. Even the rocks on the ground had been shattered. How was this still the famous Pill Emperor Hall? It no longer exuded any sense of majesty at all. Only a sense of destruction could be felt. What happened just now? The hearts of the spectators pounded. They saw the experts of the Pill Emperor Hall, including the Pill Emperor, staring dumbfoundedly at the heavens. When the constellation enveloped the Pill Emperor Hall, who was it that descended? And who was it that used the power of the constellation to seal the entire Great Hall within? Where's Qin Wentian? It was at this time that they discovered to their astonishment that Qin Wentian, who had transformed into a rock, had actually disappeared. The rock had a wingspan of 3,000 meters. With such a huge body, even if it had fallen, its corpse should still be there. It was impossible for it to vanish into thin air. Even the cliff within the forbidden ground seemed to have been destroyed. How is Mo Qingcheng? There were countless doubts in the hearts of the crowd, but no one could clear them up. Senior. At this moment, the experts of the Hua clan arrived at the entrance of the Pill Emperor Hall, bowing to the Pill Emperor. This person was a king of elixirs. They naturally had to be respectful. However, at this moment, they only saw the king of elixirs turning around and glancing at them. His eyes were devoid of life, like an old man in his twilight years. Furthermore, his eyes were filled with coldness. Senior, may I ask what's going on? Someone asked. Scram! A thunderous roar rang out. The countenance of that person instantly paled. The Pill Emperor waved his hands as a terrifying flame energy blasted towards that person. The coldness in the eyes of the Pill Emperor caused that person to feel stifled. Senior. The countenances of those from the Hua clan all changed. They didn't know what they had done to anger the Pill Emperor. From today onwards, the Pill Emperor Hall shall enter closed-door seclusion, severing all grudges with the external world. Nobody is allowed to enter the Pill Emperor Hall for an indefinite period of time. The Pill Emperor's voice was ice-cold as he continued. Now, all of you are to leave within the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. As the sound of his voice faded, the Pill Emperor waved his hands as a raging wind gusted by, as a stifling pressure bore down on everyone. The countenances of those from the Hua clan, Wang clan, Star-Seizing Manor and the other transcendent powers were all incredibly unsightly to behold. What exactly happened? Why would the Pill Emperor give such an order? The Pill Emperor Hall shall enter closed-door seclusion, severing all grudges with the external world for an indefinite period of time. Such an order caused countless people to be in an uproar. They knew that this definitely had something to do with what happened after the Pill Emperor Hall's constellation enveloped the Pill Emperor Hall. Because even if the Pill Emperor didn't say it, the others wouldn't dare to say it as well. The Pill Emperor gave such an order because of the words left behind by that supreme expert. What happened today was not to be leaked to the outside world. Once it was leaked, the Pill Emperor Hall would be purged from the Pill Emperor Hall. This meant that for those who knew of this matter, they had to be firmly controlled and confined within the Pill Emperor Hall. He had no choice but to give such an order. He didn't know who would flee the Pill Emperor Hall out of fear and divulge this secret. As the Pill Emperor, he naturally wouldn't allow such a thing to happen. The experts from the Pill Emperor Hall naturally understood the reason why the Pill Emperor gave such an order. Earlier, many thoughts flashed through their minds, and there were indeed some who wanted to flee. After offending such a terrifying character, they had no way to resist, they had no ability to resist. That was akin to a gigantic boulder pressing down on them, although it didn't directly crush them to death. But behind them, there was still a demon-level existence like Qin Wentian. One day, he would descend upon the Pill Emperor Hall and punish them for all the hatred they had for him. None of them had the ability to resist. None of them dared to pursue and kill Qin Wentian. They could only wait for the end of the world to descend. This was simply a dead knot. Qin Wentian didn't directly destroy the Pill Emperor Hall, yet he had cast a shadow over the entire Pill Emperor Hall. The hearts of everyone present felt as though there was a weight of 10,000 jin weighing down on them. And the person with the heaviest guts was none other than Luo He. Feeling the cold gazes of the crowd, Luo He only felt her entire body turning cold. Was this really her fault? Naturally not entirely. For the sake of their ancestor, anyone would be willing to sacrifice a Qin Wentian, a Mo Qingcheng. But on the surface she was the mastermind. She was the one who ignited the flames of hatred in Qin Wentian's heart, causing him to slaughter his way into the Pill Emperor Hall. The Pill Emperor also turned his gaze onto Luo He. He wanted to punish Luo He, but now that things have come to this, what use was punishment? Everything they had done to Qin Wentian, that crazy young man was willing to disregard everything. dragging the sword for 100,000 miles. Would the young man who had transformed into a demon in the Pill Emperor Hall be able to forgive them for what they had done to Mo Ching-chung? This hatred could only be washed away with fresh blood. Staring at the towering demon sword, this demon sword was like a pillar of humiliation to the Pill Emperor Hall. From now on it would always be there, waiting for its owner to come and pluck it out from the ground, destroying this ancient great hall. How cruel was this reality? It was as cruel as what they did to Qin Wentian today. At that time Qin Wentian had no strength to resist. He could only fight with his life on the line. The others also cast a deep glance at the demon sword before turning and departing the area. How would they dare to refuse the Pill Emperor's banishment? It was just that the doubts in their hearts couldn't be resolved. Zhongyi was also among the crowd. He had been observing everything that Qin Wentian had done. With regards to the successor of the Azure Emperor, today's events had truly shocked him. When he saw how helpless Qin Wentian was, his heart was filled with anxiety. But with the celestial phenomenon ascendant acting, he didn't even have the qualifications to participate. If he acted to save Qin Wentian, other than sending himself to death, there was no other use. At this moment, the image of that wild and violent demonified silhouette was still resounding in his mind. Was he still there? Zhongyi had a feeling that Qin Wentian was definitely still alive. If not, the Pill Emperor Hall wouldn't have acted in such a manner. Perhaps there was a secret behind that young man that he didn't know about. Very swiftly, everyone left, bringing along boundless bewilderment as they returned to their respective halls. The Pill Emperor Hall was still as silent as ever. They only stared at the Pill Emperor, not daring to speak. There was only pressure in the air. Without my command, no one is allowed to take a single step out of the Pill Emperor Hall. The Pill Emperor slowly spoke. After which, he lifted his feet and walked towards the direction of the Pill Emperor Hall that was split into two. Nobody knew what he was thinking in his heart at this moment. Between a single thought. Before my father died, he told me these 4 words. Only now did I truly comprehend the meaning behind it. What does it mean by between a single thought? The Pill Emperor murmured, his back view filled with the vicissitudes of time. With a single thought, the reputation of the Pill Emperor Hall was destroyed. From the height of glory to the point of utter destruction, it actually happened in the span of a single thought. Luohi's body trembled violently. That voice had moved her so intensely. Wasn't all of this caused by a single thought of hers? Ching-chung. At this moment Luohi thought of her outstanding disciple, Mo Ching-chung. Yet, she had single-handedly sent her disciple to her grave. The crowd from the star-seizing manor slowly departed. Their brows were all tightly furrowed. Up ahead, a middle-aged man clad in robes made of constellations spoke. What do you think of the matter today? The Pill Emperor Hall seems to have suffered a great loss this time. I suspect that Qin Wentian was rescued by someone else. Another person replied, his words causing the heart of the person who asked the question to shudder. He then murmured, being able to rescue someone from the clutches of the Pill Emperor, heavily injuring 2 celestial phenomenon ascendants and even retreating safely. What level of strength does he have? He should be able to kill many experts from the Pill Emperor Hall, right? Why didn't he do so? The person who spoke earlier frowned as he shook his head. He had no way to explain this. If there really was such a character, why didn't he act against those from the Pill Emperor Hall? They couldn't understand. Maybe Qin Wentian had already fallen. No matter what, the hatred between us and Qin Wentian isn't too great. In the future, if he's still alive, he would definitely have reinforcements that are strong enough to contend against the Pill Emperor Hall. At that time we shouldn't antagonize him anymore. That person slowly spoke as the others nodded their heads. Indeed, if Qin Wentian was still alive, it would be best not to antagonize him. Not only for the star-seizing manor, all the transcendent powers here had the same thought. If Qin Wentian died, so be it. But if he was still alive... The news of what happened in the Pill Emperor Hall swiftly spread throughout the entire Moon continent, and even to the entire 9 prefectures of Grand Xia. A month later, Qin Wentian's deeds in the Pill Emperor Hall caused a sensation in Grand Xia. In fact, it was even turned into a children's song, sung by countless people. At the bottom of the cliff, the demon sword howled. Blood fed the demon sword, dragging it for 100,000 miles, ascending the Pill Emperor Hall alone. Unwillingness to part with love, unquenchable hatred. Transforming into an ancient demon, a great rock with a wingspan of 3,000 meters, slashing apart the Pill Emperor Hall with his sword. The birth of dried bones, the appearance of a Pill Emperor, life and death severed by the heavens. Who was this young man? The top ranker of the heavenly fate rankings, Qin Wentian. Chapter 431. The legends of Qin Wentian circulated around Grand Xia. Yet Qin Wentian himself had vanished without a trace. There was a rumor saying that when he was in the Pill Emperor Hall, a fairy-like maiden appeared and rescued him. As for the veracity of this rumor, no one could verify it. Qin Wentian's life or death was unknown. Mo Qingqing's life or death was unknown. There were some who said that both of them had already died, while there were others who said that Qin Wentian was still alive, waiting for a day when he would step into the Pill Emperor Hall to avenge Mo Qingqing. Time slowly flowed by. Today, a piece of news caused quite a commotion in the Demon Continent. In the wilderness outside the Demon Continent, there were people who saw a fairy-like silhouette. Her entire body was filled with fatigue, yet she was carrying the gigantic silhouette of a great rock on her back as she soared through the air with great difficulty. Occasionally, that fairy-like silhouette would even cough out a mouthful of fresh blood. When this news circulated around the Demon Continent, the hearts of many trembled. A fairy-like maiden, a gigantic rock? Could it be that the rumor regarding the Pill Emperor Hall was true? There were even people who went to the outskirts of the Demon Continent to investigate. Yet how could they find the silhouette of that fairy-like maiden and the great rock? In the blink of an eye, another month passed. A total of 3 months had already passed since Qin Wentian's heaven-shaking actions in the Pill Emperor Hall. The forested mountain range near the Demon Continent was boundless and boundless. Many adventurers came here, but they didn't dare to venture too deep in. There were simply too many dangers hidden within. And today, in the depths of the mountain range on top of an ancient mountain peak, a gigantic silhouette could be seen lying there. The eyes of this gigantic silhouette gleamed with sharpness and coldness as it stared ahead, exuding a sense of sorrow. If one got nearer, they would discover to their shock that this gigantic silhouette was actually the silhouette of a great rock. This great rock was none other than Qin Wentian in his human form. Back then in the battle, his vitality was greatly damaged. Despite transforming into a great rock, his life force was incomparably vigorous, yet he still narrowly lost his life. Luckily, the power of his bloodline was too tyrannical, allowing him to slowly recover. 3 months later he finally woke up. Not only that, the injuries in his body were gradually healing. Although he was alive, his heart was as cold as ice. Qingqing, was she no longer in this world? Every time he thought of this, his heart would ache even more. His gaze was like a sharp blade, wanting nothing more than to slaughter his way into the Pill Emperor Hall once more. However, why did Qingqing's pellet also disappear? That day after he fainted, Qin Wentian had no idea what happened next. He thought that he would die, but when he woke up, he discovered that he was lying on the back of a fairy-like figure. Qing had been carrying him on her back all this time. In the distance, a gust of wind blew past as a lithe silhouette flickered and appeared in front of the great rock. In her hands, there were some medicinal herbs which she placed in front of Qin Wentian's mouth. Qin Wentian looked at Qing and opened his mouth. Then Qing fed the herb into his mouth. After that, she walked to Qin Wentian's abdomen and prepared to carry him on her back. At this moment, a voice drifted out from the great rock's mouth, causing Qing's countenance to falter. After which, she slowly walked to the side of Qin Wentian's head and quietly stood there. She was still the same as before, she didn't like to talk. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice, "There's no need to carry me on your back. I will fully recover after a few more days. It's just that after I passed out that day, what happened?" Qing turned and stared at Qin Wentian. After which, she shook her head and replied, "I don't know how she is now." She truly didn't know. She only knew that an extremely powerful expert appeared and told her not to tell Qin Wentian about this. She believed that this person was doing this for Qin Wentian's sake. As for Mo Qingqing, she also had no idea how she was doing at the bottom of the cliff. Qin Wentian fell silent. He turned his eyes and stared into the distance. Qing could feel the sorrow in Qin Wentian's heart. She was speechless, and the two of them fell silent. After a long time, Qing'er cast another glance at Qin Wentian. Lowering her head, she softly spoke, "Maybe she is still alive." Qin Wentian's countenance stiffened. He turned his gaze onto Qing'er once more, but he didn't say anything. His countenance gradually dimmed. Maybe Qing'er was consoling him. "Qing'er, thank you." Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice, causing Qing'er's body to tremble. After which she slowly sat down on the ground, accompanying Qin Wentian just like that. Before this, she was always mysterious and unfathomable. Unless there was something important, she wouldn't show herself. But this time around, she didn't leave and chose to hide in the shadows. Instead, she sat beside Qin Wentian. She could feel the sorrow in Qin Wentian's heart. Everything that Qin Wentian had done in the Pill Emperor Hall, she had personally witnessed it. It was as though she was truly exhausted. After sitting there for a long time, as night gradually descended, Qing'er closed her eyes and quietly fell asleep. Her body leaned against Qin Wentian's gigantic head. Her breathing was even and rhythmic. Her beauty was dazzling to the extreme. Qin Wentian sighed in his heart. Despite the sorrow in his heart, he was still touched. He naturally knew that Qing'er was injured, and her injuries weren't light either. Yet, she still carried him on her back, all the way from the moon continent to the demon continent. Humans weren't plants or trees. How could Qin Wentian not feel gratitude in his heart? The early morning sunlight cascaded down on the demon continent, causing the forest to be filled with vitality. Today, Qin Wentian stood up and slowly walked forward. Qing'er followed beside him. A few days later, Qin Wentian's speed gradually increased. And after a few more days, the great rock could already spread its wings and soared into the skies. Qing'er sat on his back, gazing at the scenery in the distance. Dusk, the glow of the setting sun blanketed the skies, illuminating the demon continent. In this part of the demon continent there were a few experts strolling about. They were adventurers who came here to hunt demonic beasts. At this moment, one of them inclined his head and stared at the red glow of the setting sun. Instantly, his gaze froze, as though he had just witnessed an inconceivable scene. At the peak of an ancient mountain there was a gigantic boulder. On top of the boulder, a great rock could be seen gazing at the skies. The rock was like something straight out of a painting, so beautiful that it caused one to be breathless. Not only that, beside the great rock, there was a peerlessly beautiful silhouette. It was none other than Qing'er, who had removed her veil, revealing her true features. An otherworldly beauty, as well as a tyrannical ancient great rock. The visual impact of such a scene was too intense. "What's wrong?" the others asked in a low voice. Following the gaze of that person, they too stared at the peak of the mountain. Their gazes instantly froze, as they were all captivated by the scene before them. At this moment, that fairy-like silhouette slowly walked up to the back of the great rock and sat down. The great rock unfurled its 3,000-meter-long wings and abruptly flapped, causing a raging wind to kick up. The silhouette of the great rock soared up into the clouds, as though it wanted to soar into the sunset. The great rock soared into the clouds, whistling through the air with terrifying speed. The raging wind buffeted Qing'er's body, yet she merely sat there quietly, gazing at the scenery in the skies. How beautiful! Qing'er stretched out her hands, wanting to grab a strand of red light. However, she discovered that it was merely an illusion. She couldn't grab it at all. "You've cultivated a secret art, but can't you transform into a human?" Qing'er mumbled. Her voice directly transmitted into Qin Wentian's ears. "The demonic divinity sacrificial transformation allows me to communicate with the demonic divinities of the 8 directions, bestowing me with such power. It's irreversible." Qin Wentian soared through the air as he spoke. In his heart it was unknown what he was thinking. Although he was a demon, his strength would soar by leaps and bounds. But since he was a human, how could he be willing to remain a demon forever? There will always be a way. Qing'er's voice was crisp and melodious, as though she was in deep contemplation. "So what if I'm a demon? Since I'm a great rock in the clouds, I'm the king of the skies. As a demon, I also want to be the sovereign of the skies." Qin Wentian's voice was filled with arrogance. The wings of the great rock flapped even more ferociously as he soared through the clouds like a bolt of lightning. After a moment of silence, Qing'er continued, "But I still want you to be a human." Qin Wentian's gaze flickered as he fell into silence once more. A human and a demon continued advancing, as fast as lightning. Finally, a demon city appeared in their vision. Looking down from the clouds, one could see the entirety of the demon city with a single glance. In the air above the celestial lake palace, a raging wind abruptly gusted as a terrifying great rock descended from the skies. This caused the countenances of those from the celestial lake palace to drastically change. When they sensed the tyrannical aura of the great rock, they all exclaimed in shock, "That's Princess Qing'er." At this moment, their gazes abruptly landed on Qing'er, who was riding on the back of the great rock. Only then did their nervousness recede, as their hearts pounded wildly. Princess Qing'er had actually returned riding on such a powerful great rock. Numerous silhouettes flickered as the great rock soared through the air, causing a raging wind to kick up. The silhouette of the great rock descended upon the vast public square, its gigantic eyes sweeping through the surroundings, causing the hearts of the spectators to involuntarily tremble. At this moment, a few silhouettes appeared in the air. The person in the lead was an exceedingly beautiful maiden. Just by standing there, she exuded an aura of majesty. At this moment, her gaze landed on the great rock, as a gentle light flickered in her eyes. After which, her silhouette flickered as she appeared beside the great rock. Looking at Qin Wentian, she stated, "Child, it's been hard on you." Qin Wentian's countenance flickered, as a look of bewilderment flashed in his eyes. However, the beautiful maiden then replied, "I'm Qing, Fairy Qingmei." A brilliant light flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes as he greeted, "I pay my respects to Senior." Fairy Qingmei stretched out her hands, gently stroking Qin Wentian's head. Sighing, she turned her gaze to Qing'er. "Qing'er, are you all right?" Qing'er lightly shook her head, not saying anything. Yet, the hearts of those from the celestial lake palace trembled. Fairy Qingmei had actually appeared. Why was she so gentle towards the great rock? Who was this great rock exactly? The location of the celestial lake palace was too remote. They were situated in the middle of a mountain range, and rarely interacted with the outside world. Hence, the news they knew was much more limited. Other than Fairy Qingmei and a few others, the others didn't know what happened in the Pill Emperor Hall. Everything that happened here is forbidden to be leaked out. Fairy Qingmei's gaze swept over the crowd as she commanded, "Yes, Fairy Qing." It was rare for the crowd to see Fairy Qingmei in person. All of them respectfully replied, not daring to defy her command. "Let's go." Fairy Qingmei spoke to Qin Wentian and Qing'er, before turning and departing the area. Chapter 432. Fairy Qingmei brought Qin Wentian and Qing'er to a garden. Right now, Qin Wentian was in the form of a great rock. His body was simply too gigantic. There was no way he could enter any of the buildings. This should be the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation art, right? Fairy Qingmei, who was walking in front, halted her steps. She turned and stared at the silhouette of the great rock. The great rock nodded his head. "I obtained an innate technique from the vermilion bird formation of Granxia, the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation art. This art allows one to borrow the power of the demonic divinities in the 8 directions, transforming into an ancient demon. Right now my physique, bloodline, and strength are all perfect. The only thing I can't reverse is this. I've heard of this secret art before. It's indeed too tyrannical. Who would have thought that you would barge into the Pill Emperor Hall alone, transforming into an ancient demon?" Fairy Qingmei sighed. The strength of the ancient kingdom of Granxia back then was comparable to all the transcendent powers of the 9 prefectures added together. That's because existences that stood at the very peak were already able to look down on the masses. Since they said this art can't be reversed, then it is. My strength is limited, there's nothing I can do. Qing'er furrowed her brows when she heard Fairy Qingmei's words. Qin Wentian's countenance didn't change as he calmly replied, "So what if I'm a supreme ancient demon?" Fairy Qingmei inclined her head and stared at the air, as though she was lost in her memories. She mumbled in a low voice, "You and the Azure Emperor back then are really similar. Back then he didn't have a strong backing, yet he had an arrogant personality and didn't like to be controlled by others. He would soar as high as the heavens are, nobody could control him. Hence he was envied by many and offended many. Although he knew that he was alone, he still established the Azure Emperor Palace, wanting to contend against the other transcendent powers. Sadly, as a Heaven's Chosen, he still couldn't escape death in the end. Although you and the Azure Emperor had different experiences, both of you are so outstanding and lofty. I don't wish for you to follow in his footsteps. Fairy Qingmei slowly spoke. The death of the Azure Emperor was her greatest pain. Qin Wentian was speechless. He had long known that Fairy Qingmei and the Azure Emperor were deeply in love with each other. If not, after 3,000 years, how many grudges would have been wiped away? Yet she would still be unable to forget the Azure Emperor. Although my strength is extraordinary, I'm very clear that at my current level, if I want to continue improving, I can no longer rely on absorbing external energy to break through the celestial phenomenon realm. I've already reached a bottleneck, and it's hard for me to advance any further. I can only place my hopes on my descendants, and you are the successor chosen by the Azure Emperor. Since he has chosen you, I don't wish for you to transform into a demon forever. After all, I hope that in the future of Granxia, the Azure Emperor Palace would be able to stand proudly once again. Maybe this is my selfish motive. Fairy Qingmei mumbled to herself as she turned and walked away. Qing eyes flickered. She looked at Qin Wentian and said in a low voice, "I'll go and have a look." After speaking, she also stepped out, following after Fairy Qingmei. Qin Wentian inclined his head, staring at the skies. His huge eyes flickered with a sense of bewilderment, yet the will of vengeance was still burning within him. Busy. A raging wind gusted as his silhouette soared up into the skies. The great rock spread its wings and instantly vanished without a trace as he soared into the skies. Fairy Qingmei and Qing'er halted their steps. They inclined their heads and stared at the great rock soaring up into the skies, sighing in their hearts. This young man's talent is extremely high, and his will is extremely terrifying. Both of them have already surpassed the Azure Emperor of that year. As a person, he should be an outstanding hero. As a demon, he should be the sovereign of demons. Fairy Qingmei sighed in a low voice. Sadly, I Qingmei have lived for many years. I wanted to help him, yet I discovered that I'm powerless to do so. I'll try. Qing'er spoke, her words causing Fairy Qingmei's eyes to flicker. She turned her gaze onto Qing'er as a sharp glint of light flickered in her eyes. You want to look for them? Qing'er didn't look at Fairy Qingmei. Nor did she reply. Do you know the reason why I couldn't leave? It's precisely because of this. Now that you have taken the initiative to look for them, how could they possibly agree to it? They will. Qing'er's words were extremely few. She only spoke two simple words, as though her words were akin to gold. Whatever she said, it was as though she would definitely be able to accomplish it. No, I don't agree. Fairy Qingmei decisively rejected. Even if they have a way, they will definitely take you away from my side. I will never allow it. They won't. Qing'er shook her head lightly as she stared at the skies. Over there, a great rock could be seen soaring through the skies. I still want to see him rule over Granxia. Qing'er's voice was cold, yet there was a hint of determination within. Fairy Qingmei stared at this disciple of hers as her heart trembled violently. She understood Qing'er too well. She rarely spoke, but every word she said was extremely precious. Once she decided on something, nobody would be able to change it, not even her master. However, she also knew what sort of existence Qing'er was. The sealing energy in her body caused even her to feel suffocated. As for back then when she asked Qing'er to protect Qin Wentian, it was actually because of her own selfish motives. Just like what she said to Qin Wentian earlier, she hoped that the Azure Emperor Palace would be able to rise up once again in Granxia. 3,000 years of faith and perseverance. To Fairy Qingmei, the Azure Emperor was above everything else. Naturally, this included Qin Wentian, Qing'er, and even herself. If it wasn't for the fact that she viewed the Azure Emperor as more important than her own life, how would she have persevered for 3,000 years, waiting for the arrival of that day? However, when the secrets of Qing'er were finally revealed, her clansmen found this place. Yet, she couldn't bear to see Qing'er leave. Master, wait for me. Qing'er spoke in a low voice. After which, her silhouette flickered as she vanished from her original location. Fairy Qingmei's gaze froze as she stared in the direction where Qing'er had left. An indescribable feeling filled her heart. A few hundred miles away from the Sky Demon City, there was a misty land that seemed to be an independent existence. Half a year ago, this place was the same as the other places, a corner of the demonic beast forest. This misty land was most probably formed from that time. Once, humans or demonic beasts would enter the misty land only to discover that there was nothing inside. Yet, they would still get lost within, and after a long period of time they would be able to find their way out again. As time passed, there were no signs of humans here, and even demonic beasts would avoid this place. However, at this moment, a flawlessly beautiful silhouette descended from the skies, landing outside of the misty land. This silhouette was none other than Ching-er. She simply stood outside of the misty land, with no fluctuations in her eyes. An instant later, 2 rows of silhouettes appeared. These 2 rows of silhouettes appeared in 2 rows, and all of them were clad in white. They were all extremely beautiful women. They walked towards Ching-er and knelt on one knee as they respectfully greeted. "We pay our respects to Princess." "I'm not." Ching-er's expression didn't change at all, and she coldly spat out a few words. "Princess, please enter." The 2 rows of silhouettes left a path in the middle, directly facing Ching-er's position. Ching-er didn't reply, she continued standing there. Those silhouettes didn't get up either, and continued to kneel there. The silence was so terrifying that it was terrifying. From afar, 2 beams of sharp light shot over. It was actually a pair of eyes, belonging to a powerful demonic beast, the flame rhinoceros. It stared at the situation here, its heart trembling with shock. But at this moment, one of the white-robed silhouettes abruptly shifted her gaze over. Her silhouette flickered as she vanished from sight. An instant later, a howl of agony rang out. The flame rhinoceros that had a cultivation base at the pinnacle of Yuanfu was instantly annihilated. As for the white-robed silhouette, she once again knelt at her original position. There wasn't even a speck of dust on her body. It was as though she had never left her original position, and had always been kneeling there. Sha sha sha, the sound of footsteps rang out as a few silhouettes walked out from the misty land. One was an old man, while the other 2 were young men. "We pay our respects to Princess." The old man bowed to Ching-er, and the 2 young men also knelt on one knee, with expressions of respect on their faces. If these 2 young men were in the Grand Xia Empire, they would definitely be able to cause a huge commotion. But at this moment, they didn't have any resentment in their hearts as they knelt there. "Princess, you've already broken the seal, but you've already injured yourself." The old man glanced at Ching-er as he spoke. "I want a cultivation art or perhaps a secret art." Ching-er stared at the old man in front of her, ignoring his question. She replied in a cold voice, "The demonic divinity sacrificial transformation is able to borrow the power of the demonic divinities in the 8 directions to transform into an ancient demon, causing one's strength to explosively increase. One's physique, bloodline, and strength would be perfect, but it's irreversible. I want to break the seal." The old man furrowed his brows, as a look of contemplation appeared on his face. After which, he added in a low voice, "Princess, you must remember this. You must never break the seal again. If not, the damage to your body would be too great." As for what Princess said, this secret art is capable of changing the heavens and earth. It's definitely extremely powerful. It's extremely difficult to break it. "I must." Ching-er's voice grew even colder, causing the old man to furrow his brows. He contemplated for a moment before he spoke again. "From what I know, there's only one way to break this art. This art is a supreme innate technique that allows one to cultivate another true body, creating an exact replica of himself. According to what Princess has said, this person must have transformed from a human into a demon. If he cultivates this art, he would definitely be able to cultivate his true self. As for the ancient demon he transformed into, he would continue to exist in this world as an ancient demon, continuing his cultivation. If one can truly obtain it, it would be considered as a pioneer. However, Princess has already heard of the might of this art. You should know how precious it is. Even for my clan, it's extremely difficult to obtain it. If we want to obtain it, we would have to go through an earth-shattering battle." The old man slowly spoke. "I want this art." Ching-er interjected, causing the old man to stare at her, speechless in his heart. This princess who had been away from home for a long time, probably didn't know how precious this art was. She only used a few words to reply to him she wanted this art. But if he wanted this art, how would he be able to obtain it? At this moment he was thinking, who did Princess Qing want this art for? Wasn't this person's luck too heaven-defying? I need to use the teleportation array to report this matter to my clan leader. Also, I'm afraid that Princess will have to follow me in first. Princess will have to discuss this with my clan leader personally. The old man bowed slightly, lowering his head as he spoke no more. Fine. Qing lifted her foot and walked forward. She only spoke a single word, yet there was no hesitation in her words. This caused the old man to start. He inclined his head and stared at Qing as she neared. He couldn't help but be speechless as he opened a path for her. Go and investigate this matter. Who is the princess seeking this art for? The old man transmitted his voice to a white-robed maiden. After Qing stepped into the mist, he waved his hand and the white-robed maiden's silhouette flickered as she left the area. Chapter 433. Outside of the Demon Mountain City, the desolate forests and mountain ranges were boundlessly vast. Danger lurked everywhere, and powerful demonic beasts could appear at any moment. Even within the Demon Mountain City, it was a place where both experts and demonic beasts lived together. After demonic beasts stepped into the Heavenly Dipper realm, they would be able to transform into humans. There were demons that were willing to roam the world of mortals, but there were also demons that preferred to live in the world of demons. Qin Wentian had used the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation, using his own body as a sacrifice to the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation, allowing him to transform into a human. At this moment he was also in the world of demons within the vast forests. On top of a gigantic boulder, the great rock stood there, its eyes gleaming with sharpness as it stared at a group of powerful demonic beasts. Scram! The great rock stared at the great earthen demon bear in the lead. In its eyes an unparalleled majesty could be seen, as though it was the king of all living things. This earthen demonic bear was a bear king, a domineering demonic beast that ruled over an area of a few thousand miles. Seeing a rock appearing in its territory, its pitch-black eyes were filled with a tyrannical coldness, as if it was thirsty for blood. However, the body of this great rock was gigantic, and its eyes gleamed with sharpness. It resembled an ancient cloud rock, the king of all demons in the 9 heavens. But upon seeing the disdainful look in the eyes of the great rock, the earthen demon bear let out a roar. Instantly the earth trembled as the surrounding demonic beasts all rushed towards the great rock. Busy! A raging wind gusted as a terrifying demonic chi gushed forth. The great rock spread its wings and instantly, the surrounding demonic beasts were all sent flying. The eyes of the earthen demon bear narrowed. Upon sensing the might of the great rock, it hurriedly retreated, only to see the great rock's silhouette flickering as it vanished from sight. The rock flash technique was now used by a real rock. How terrifying was it? In an instant, the sharp claws directly tore through the flesh on the back of the demonic bear and pierced into its body, directly lifting that incomparably huge body up. With a roar, the great rock soared up into the skies as it abruptly flung itself outwards. Bang! With a loud bang, the huge body of the demonic bear slammed into a small mountain in the distance, causing it to crack. The great rock let out a shrill cry as it flew forward at a low altitude. The forests below trembled as the demonic beasts all prostrated themselves. They raised their heads and stared at the terrifying silhouette in the air, as though they were looking up to their king. Up in the sky, Qin Wentian looked down from above. Wherever his gaze swept across, no demon dared to look directly at him. Buzz! The raging winds howled. The silhouette of the great rock landed on the peak of a gigantic ancient mountain. His eyes pierced through everything, staring down at the demonic beasts below as he coldly spoke. In this 10,000 miles radius, I am the king. All demonic beasts, scram out of my territory or come here to pay your respects. Now go and issue my command. The voice rolled off into the distance with the wind, causing all the demonic beasts in the area to crawl even deeper into the ground. The law of the jungle that demonic beasts abided by was even more direct. The strongest was king. Now that the Cloud Rock was going to be the king of the 10,000 miles of demon territory, all the demons had to come here to pay their respects. Go. The great rock howled in rage when he saw that none of the demonic beasts dared to get up. In an instant the demonic beasts trembled as the entire forest trembled. All the demonic beasts in this area left to issue the command. The great rock stared at the demonic beasts, its eyes as sharp as ever. Since it was a demonic beast, it had to be the king of all demonic beasts in this territory. If it couldn't live as a human in this lifetime, it would trample the entire moon continent and flatten the Pill Emperor Hall. In a radius of 10,000 miles, the demonic beasts all rushed over. Very soon the demonic beasts all knew that a great rock had appeared in this territory, and had the ability to look down on all demonic beasts with disdain. Very swiftly, many demonic beasts came over to pay their respects. When they saw the great rock standing at the peak of the mountain, all of them could feel how powerful it was. All of them prostrated themselves on the ground, paying their respects to the Demon King. The entire region was in an uproar. All the powerful demonic beasts that had once been kings of their respective territories had all gathered here. For a period of time, a grand gathering of demonic beasts had appeared. Such a scene involuntarily caused Qin Wentian to recall the scene back then in the dark forest outside of Chu. At that time an ancient demon statue appeared in the dark forest, and all the demonic beasts went there to pay their respects. Mo Qingcheng braved great danger to find him, informing him of what happened in Chu. Now everything was still vivid in his mind. However, the scene now was even more majestic compared to back then. The demonic beasts were even stronger, and even more numerous. Despite so many demonic beasts, the surroundings of the mountain peak were extremely quiet. All the demonic beasts submitted, and none of them dared to move recklessly. This was all because the great rock hadn't spoken yet. Qin Wentian swept his gaze over the demonic beasts in the surroundings. The demonic beasts here were incomparably strict, and there were several powerful demonic beasts that floated in the air with their heads lowered. And further down, there were even more demonic beasts that floated in the air. The lower the demonic beasts went, the weaker they became. Some of the demonic beasts closest to the mountain peak were extremely powerful. Their eyes gleamed with sharpness as they stared at the great rock. The great rock glanced over at them, his icy gaze sweeping over them, causing the arrogant demonic beasts to lower their heads, not daring to look directly at him. Gradually, none of the demonic beasts dared to look directly into the eyes of the great rock. All of them submitted, and the atmosphere was incomparably quiet. I wish to unify the 10,000 miles of the demon region. If you all are unwilling, you can leave. But if you are willing, you can serve me as your king. The great rock's voice boomed out, sweeping across the entire region. Momentarily, all the demonic beasts lowered their heads, expressing their willingness to submit. The demonic beasts that came here today all had the same thought. They hoped that there would be a powerful demon king that would be willing to lead them. Those who were unwilling had long since left. Before this, who was the lord of this 10,000-mile region? The great rock coldly spoke. Momentarily, the demonic beasts closest to him all stepped forward. All of them were extremely powerful, and even the weakest among them had an aura at the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper. Since he was the lord of a demon region, he naturally had to have the strength to intimidate the other demonic beasts. Fine, the 9 of you shall be the first batch of demonic beast commanders under me. You will be in charge of helping me govern the demons. Since I want to unify this region, I need absolute order. Can the 9 of you accomplish this? The great rock's voice was filled with a majestic might. The 9 demons bowed their heads, and one of them similarly spoke in human language. King, we will definitely be able to accomplish your orders. It's just that this 10,000-mile region is very close to the Demon Mountain City. Hence, we need a demon king to govern this region. As for the other regions further away, there are also powerful demonic beasts that frequently invade our territories. What should we do? Out of the 9 of you, 8 will be in charge of the various demonic beasts. The last will be in charge of familiarizing yourself with this region and help me make plans. Also, inform me of the current situation in this region. The great rock stood on the mountain peak as he continued speaking. Every time he spoke, his voice was filled with a majestic might. Especially those eyes of his, they were filled with a sense of ferocity, as though he was the true sovereign of the skies, capable of causing all the demonic beasts to involuntarily submit. Precisely because they could sense the majesty and strength of the great rock, The demonic beasts were willing to listen to his commands. If not, demonic beasts were all extremely violent and violent creatures. A massive reorganization of the demonic beasts began in the demon realm. For this reorganization, Qin Wentian used the strict requirements of the human sex to govern the demons. If he wanted the demonic beasts to grow stronger, he had to first have the strength to unify them. 7 days later, the demonic king of the Great Rock welcomed its first storm. 10,000 miles away in the demon region, there was also another demonic king. This demonic king was an extremely powerful scarlet-winged earth dragon, a descendant of one of the 8 demonic dragons. Its strength was incomparably terrifying, and it had scarlet-colored wings that allowed it to descend into the heavens and descend into the earth. This demonic beast was extremely tyrannical, cruel, greedy, and lustful. It was only because the Great Rock's territory was close to the demon continent that it didn't rule over it. But now there were actually other demonic beasts that dared to rule over this region. Hence, the Great Rock sent out demonic beasts to launch an invasion. At the border between the two regions, a storm of blood arose. Several terrifying demonic beasts led the other demonic beasts to invade and kill. A powerful venomous fang python was exceedingly terrifying. Anyone who got bitten by its venomous fangs would die for sure. However, at this moment in the border region, a violent gust of wind blew, and a terrifying demonic chi could be sensed from afar. The demonic beasts inclined their heads, and after which, a group of demonic beasts had expressions of excitement on their faces. Their new king had arrived. As for the other demonic beasts, their eyes narrowed. An instant later, the Great Rock descended in the airspace above this region, its cold gaze sweeping through the area below. Vizi. A violent gust of wind gusted by as fresh blood splattered out. That powerful venom-toothed python was directly sliced into 2, causing the battle between the demonic beasts to come to an abrupt halt. Those who invade my territory shall be killed without mercy. The Great Rock floated in the air, exuding a killing intent. The might of an emperor gushed forth, causing the hearts of the invading demonic beasts to tremble. After which, a powerful demonic beast prostrated itself on the ground. I'm willing to submit. Bzz. A violent gust of wind gusted by as a terrifying silhouette arced through the air. That prostrating demonic beast was decapitated. The Great Rock soared up into the skies once more as it coldly spoke. Those who slaughtered my people will not submit. Kill them. As the sound of its voice faded, the demonic beasts all felt their blood boiling. How could they not submit to such a powerful demonic lord? The Great Rock's silhouette flickered, and very swiftly, it had slaughtered all the demonic beasts. After which it soared up into the skies and coldly spoke, "Let your demon kings come forth. I shall await its challenge." As the sound of its voice faded, the Great Rock's silhouette vanished without a trace. However, the prestige of the Great Rock grew even stronger. In the blink of an eye, several days passed. The Great Rock stood at the peak of the mountain, and in the skies above, a beautiful silhouette could be seen. It was none other than Fairy Qingmei. Her gaze was fixed on the Great Rock below as her heart trembled. She would never have imagined that Qin Wentian would actually use the body of a great rock to command the demonic beasts. Maybe this was his spirit, or maybe this was his helplessness. As a demon, he should also be a king. If he wanted revenge, he would command the demonic beasts to do so. Qing hasn't returned yet. I wonder how she's doing. Fairy Qingmei sighed in her heart, feeling worried for Qing. However, at this moment, a raging wind gusted as the Great Rock soared up into the skies, instantly appearing before Fairy Qingmei. "Senior Qingmei," the Great Rock called out. Fairy Qingmei nodded her head. "Is there anything I can help you with? Help me investigate the whereabouts of those from the Zong clan of the Sword Reverence City and the White Deer Institute of the Moon Continent. I will contact them at any time." Qin Wentian nodded his head. "Okay, leave it to me." Fairy Qingmei agreed. "You have to take note as well. If there's anything you need, feel free to look for me." After speaking, she turned and departed. As for Qin Wentian, he returned to the mountain peak, waiting for the arrival of the demon kings from the other regions. Chapter 434. At the peak of the mountain, the Great Rock stood there, gazing at the heavens, exuding a feeling that one couldn't look up to it. Many demonic beasts would come here frequently to worship the Great Rock King. Staring at the great rock in the sky, all the demonic beasts could feel the loneliness of their king. He was supreme, peering down at all the demonic beasts, accepting their worship. He stared at the heavens, as though he wanted to soar into the clouds one day, breaking through the heavens and leaving this world. The great rock's wings were extremely low, crashing into the heavens and dying. If there was a great rock that could break through the heavens, how majestic would that be? Today a raging wind gusted. From afar, a boundless demonic might gushed forth. The great rock continued to stare at the heavens, his eyes unwavering, as though he was the king of the world. In his eyes there was only the heavens, and he no longer placed any of the ancient demons in his eyes. Roar! An enraged roar rang out. Before the mountain peak, a terrifying silhouette that wasn't any smaller than the great rock appeared. Scarlet wings, a malevolent head, sharp horns and cold eyes. This was none other than the king of another demon region, the scarlet-winged earth dragon. He was a descendant of the demonic dragons of the 8 directions, and the blood of the demonic gods flowed through his veins. But even for him, this was the first time he saw a true great rock. "So you are the king of this place?" A cold voice rang out from the mouth of the scarlet-winged earth dragon. Its body was as heavy as a small mountain, and it was unknown how heavy it was. The great rock shifted its gaze over once more, landing on the scarlet-winged earth dragon. The coldness in its eyes caused even the demonic beasts to tremble. The demonic beasts that followed behind the scarlet-winged earth dragon could all feel the coldness and arrogance of the great rock king. "Before it came here, did it slaughter any of the demons in my territory?" Qin Wentian faintly asked. "No." Below, a demonic beast beneath Qin Wentian replied. The scarlet-winged earth dragon roared. "This king disdains it." The great rock stared at his opponent and coldly spat out, "Submit or die." The scarlet-winged earth dragon let out a low-sounding roar. Abruptly, the heavens and earth trembled violently, as though the mountains were collapsing and the earth was splitting apart. The mountain peak Qin Wentian was on was also trembling violently, as though it was on the verge of collapse. A terrifying power of the earth enveloped this entire space. Astral demonic beasts were different from humans. Astral demonic beasts were innately proficient in certain domains of energy. This scarlet-winged earth dragon was born with fire-type and earth-type attributes, and was able to absorb the astral energy from constellations in the 9 heavenly layers. There was no need for them to form an innate connection with their constellations. This was an innate talent unique to them. Furthermore, the scarlet-winged earth dragon was extremely powerful, be it in terms of strength or speed. In terms of strength, it could suppress many demonic beasts of the same level. There were also many powerful astral demonic beasts that had their own innate abilities. And as their strength grew stronger, their innate abilities would also appear, allowing them to use them. The dependence of demonic beasts on their innate abilities was much stronger compared to humans. Hence, the stronger demonic beasts, such as the 8 demonic divinities and their bloodline relatives, would all be able to cultivate to a higher level. As for those demonic beasts with weaker innate abilities, they would only be able to remain at the very bottom, unless they had an extremely great opportunity or a heaven-defying effort, as well as some luck. The eyes of the great rock stared at the scarlet-winged earth dragon. A terrifying demonic king's aura gushed forth from him. That was the aura of a monarch descending from the heavens, as though the power of his bloodline was ignited within his body. The body of the great rock seemed to be enveloped by a layer of the halo of a king. That was the power of his bloodline surging crazily. The huge eyes of the scarlet-winged earth dragon narrowed as its countenance turned incredibly unsightly. This great rock had such a powerful bloodline, as though he was an innate monarch. Was this the power of his bloodline? The halo of the king grew even more resplendent. The aura of the great rock rose madly, actually breaking through to the next level, exuding the aura of a peak-level heavenly dipper sovereign. Spreading its wings, the great rock floated in the air, its eyes staring down at the scarlet-winged earth dragon as a supreme king's might gushed forth. This kind of pressure was the pressure a high-stage demon king exerted on a low-stage demonic beast. Absolute suppression. This aura caused the body of the scarlet-winged earth dragon to tremble violently, not only because of the strength of the great rock, but also because of the sensitivity of demonic beasts. The scarlet-winged earth dragon could clearly sense the nobility of the great rock. This great rock was a demonic beast of a higher level than it. An innate monarch. I'll say it again. Submit or die. The great rock coldly spoke. His voice was like a bolt of thunder, directly resonating in the mind of the scarlet-winged earth dragon. Right now, the scarlet-winged earth dragon was at the same level as the great rock, yet it could clearly feel the pressure of a higher being. Staring into the eyes of the great rock, the scarlet-winged earth dragon felt as though it was looking at the sovereign of the skies. Gradually, its eyes no longer dared to look directly at the great rock as it lowered its arrogant head. All the demonic beasts below were incomparably shocked when they saw this scene. I'm willing to submit. Upon sensing the increasingly powerful king's aura, the scarlet-winged earth dragon spoke. As the sound of its voice faded, the great rock's aura dissipated. It no longer exuded the aura of a king, completely losing its temper. The hearts of all the demonic beasts pounded as they stared at the great rock in the air. The great rock was still floating there, its sharp eyes sweeping across the crowd. None of the demonic beasts dared to look directly at it. As for the demonic beasts in the great rock's territory, their hearts were all filled with agitation as their demonic blood surged. This was their king, a true king. Even before the battle even started, the great rock had already submitted to their king. How imposing was this? Since you are the demon king of a domain, and you've entered my territory without killing a single demon, I shall confer you the position of a demon general under my command. When I'm not around, you shall govern the demons on my behalf. However, you have to abide by my rules. From now onwards, the demonic beasts of the two regions shall be unified. Killing each other shall be strictly regulated. Are you willing to accept this? The great rock's voice was cold. The scarlet-winged earth dragon nodded. Demon General obeys your command. My ambitions don't lie here. This demon region will be returned to you sooner or later. Now go. The voice of the great rock was cold and imposing, causing the demonic beasts to be unable to comprehend it. However, they could faintly sense that the great rock demon king had an even higher ambition. His target was that patch of clouds, the sovereign of the skies. The scarlet-winged earth dragon was conferred the title of Demon General. It left this place to reorganize the demonic beasts in its territory. The silhouette of the great rock returned to the peak of the ancient mountain and stood there, staring up at the skies. The demonic beasts below all stared at this scene. They would never know the loneliness of their king. He was originally a human, but after he came to the demon world, he became a king. Time flowed by, the autumn leaves dyed the forest red and yellow. Within the forest and mountain range, leaves drifted down unceasingly, causing the place to appear extremely lonely. In the demonic beast mountain range, the current ruler of the two regions was the great rock demon king. However, their demon king still stood there like a lightning bolt, his lonely silhouette seemingly eternal. Every time night fell, one could see the astral light cascading down from the skies, cascading onto the body of the great rock demon king. The astral light was exceptionally bright, causing the lonely silhouette of the great rock demon king to become even clearer. Fairy Qingmei didn't appear again. Qing Er's whereabouts were also unknown. The only thing Qin Wentian could think of now was to grow stronger and stronger. In the outside world, with regards to Qin Wentian's disappearance, the majority of people believed that he had already died. The Pill Emperor Hall also didn't make an appearance to discuss this matter. However, the strength of his friends gradually grew stronger, and they firmly believed that Qin Wentian hadn't died yet. In the Mystic Moon sect of the Spirit Continent, a silhouette clad in black robes could be seen. That exquisite figure was perfectly outlined by the tight-fitting black robes. Bai Qing had just returned from a secret location, only to learn that Qin Wentian might have died in the hands of the Pill Emperor Hall. Upon hearing this news, not a single tear fell from her eyes. She only stood there and stared into the horizons for a total of 7 days and 7 nights, not moving a single step. Little lass Qing. Behind Bai Qing, Autumn Snow's eyes reddened as she called out to her. However, it was as though Bai Qing didn't hear her. She continued staring into the horizons. The wind gusted by, fluttering the robes of the two maidens. Up in the skies, a gust of cold wind gusted by. Bai Qing's lips trembled and finally, a single teardrop flowed down from the corner of her eyes. Wentian Gij, if you die, even if the devil Dao rules the world, so what? Bai Qing's heart was filled with grief. She had cultivated to such an extent, not hesitating to injure herself. Why? If you die, what's the point of burying the entire Pill Emperor Hall? Bai Qing murmured. After which, she inclined her head and stared at the skies. Her eyes were no longer beautiful, but were incomparably dark and cold, as though they came from the depths of hell. The terrifying frigid devil energy permeated the surroundings. Autumn Snow only felt a bone-piercing coldness as she hurriedly retreated, no longer able to stand by Bai Qing's side. That devilish might enveloped Bai Qing, transforming into an even more terrifying devilish intent. Her silhouette flickered as she soared up into the skies, flying towards the horizons. Qing! Autumn Snow called out, only to hear a voice drifting over from behind. Let her be. She has cultivated the path of the devil in her entire life, and as such, her devilish intent grew even stronger. Whether it's a blessing or a calamity, it all depends on her luck. Outside of the Demon Mountain City, in the boundless forests and mountains, in the misty area, a group of silhouettes finally appeared. The old man who entered the Misty Lands back then, as well as Qing and the rest, all walked out. In the Misty Lands, everything was calm and tranquil. However, nobody would have thought that in a place far away from here, where experts were as common as the clouds, a storm of commotion was stirred up. The great Nirvana immortal art was stolen by someone, inciting a towering flame of fury from a terrifying power. It was unknown how many experts had fallen, and the transcendent powers of Grand Xia were all annihilated in the blink of an eye. Nobody knew that the cause of this storm was actually because of a certain someone in the Grand Xia Empire that was so far away from them. Qing slowly walked forwards. Behind her, the old man halted his steps as he called out, Princess. Qing's footsteps paused for a moment. Don't forget what Princess promised me. This old slave will lead my clansmen away now. That old man bowed slightly. Qing lightly nodded her head. After that, she continued walking forward. Not long after, Qing's silhouette vanished from sight. Beside the old man, a white-robed maiden stood respectfully, as though waiting for orders. Is everything you've investigated true? The old man asked calmly. Yes. Since Princess wants this method, it must be because Qin Wentian escaped from the Pill Emperor Hall. However, we have no idea who saved him. The maiden replied, her words causing the old man to frown. His surname is Qin. That man named Qin Yuanfeng shouldn't be related to him, right? Chapter 435. The misty region outside the Demon Mountain City vanished in the span of a single night, leaving no traces behind. This caused the passing demonic beasts to feel extremely puzzled. However, this seemed to be an extremely minor matter. In the royal capital of Grand Xia, there was basically no one who would know of this. What happened in this remote and desolate region would cause a huge wave of commotion. At the same time, it would also change the history of Grand Xia. In the demon region, at the peak of a mountain, the great rock stood proudly in the air. This was the solitude of a king. However, today, a silhouette flickered over from afar. The demonic beasts howled, wanting to obstruct her. However, the silhouette was proficient in spatial manipulation and could perform spatial teleportation. But even so, the silhouette was intercepted by the demonic beasts. Allow her to pass. The great rock coldly spoke. Instantly, the demonic beasts all retreated, allowing the beautiful maiden who was as beautiful as a snow lotus to pass through. This caused the demonic beasts to incline their heads in bewilderment. Did their king recognize this human maiden? Qing's silhouette flickered as she arrived at the peak of the mountain, standing beside Qin Wentian. She took out a golden page as well as an interspatial ring, and handed it over to Qin Wentian. At the same time, a melodious voice rang out, "Take a look and see if this is of any use." Qin Wentian received the golden page. He could sense the runic inscriptions on it. His will sank into it and instantly, the runic inscriptions flashed through his mind as an ancient and powerful cultivation art was imprinted into his mind. Qin Wentian's heart pounded violently as he thought about it. Even his gigantic body couldn't help but tremble involuntarily. Great Nirvana immortal art. Using the art of nirvanic rebirth to create a body of truth that is completely identical to the original. Qin Wentian's claws that were holding onto the golden page also trembled. His eyes gleamed with a terrifying light as he slowly turned his gaze over, staring at Qing who was beside him. Her gaze was as calm as ever, cold, as though she would always be like this. "Qing'er, how did you get it?" Qin Wentian's voice trembled slightly. Such a terrifying technique could completely mold another true self. This was too terrifying. As long as one was alive, it would be indestructible. Furthermore, the two bodies could cultivate in different directions. The reborn true body would be exactly the same as the original body, but after that, it could choose its own path and cultivate in different directions. To a stellar martial cultivator, it was equivalent to having an additional life. With 2 lives, one could survive, comprehend, and battle. Even if one of them died, they would still be alive. Such a cultivation art definitely wasn't something the Grand Xia Empire could possess. No wonder it was known as the Great Nirvana Immortal Art. Where did Qing'er come from? She disappeared without a trace these past few days. Was it actually because of this? What price did she pay to obtain it? Within the interspatial ring, there are treasures required for cultivation. I should be able to mold a true self-body. Qing'er didn't reply to Qin Wentian's words. She then continued, "Send me back." Qin Wentian clutched the interspatial ring tightly. His claws were so sharp that it felt as though they were about to tear his flesh apart. The Great Nirvana Immortal Art was able to mold a true self-body, but it required treasures that he had never heard of before. But just from the name alone, he could tell that these were all priceless treasures. Qin Wentian heavily nodded his head. With this Great Nirvana Immortal Art, not only would he be able to restore his true self-body, he would even be able to form an avatar of a great rock. Such a perfect thing was like a heavenly surprise. However, Qin Wentian didn't feel as excited or happy as he had imagined. There was only a heavy feeling in his heart. Although Qing'er was still cold and didn't like to speak, this feeling of hers weighed heavily on his heart. Qing'er's silhouette flickered as she sat on the back of the great rock. The great rock spread its 3,000-meter-long wings, blotting out the sun. A raging wind gusted as the great rock soared up into the skies. "Demon General Scarlet Wing, I shall temporarily leave this place to you. The other 9 demon sovereigns shall assist you." As the sound of its voice faded, the great rock soared up into the clouds. Qing'er quietly sat on Qin Wentian's back. The scene was as beautiful as a painting. Qing'er memorized this art as well. In the future, if you obtain the materials, you can use it to mold a true self-body. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. Qing'er nodded her head lightly. "I've seen it. However, other than the 2 of us, only Master knows of this. There must be no 4th person who knows of the existence of the Great Nirvana Immortal Art." Qing'er solemnly instructed. Qin Wentian naturally understood. Even if Qing'er didn't say it, he knew what he should do. If such an immortal art was made known to others, the commotion it would cause wouldn't just be limited to the Grand Xia Empire. After that, even if he could condense a true body, the Great Rock and Qin Wentian must never appear at the same time. He could let others know that he had reversed the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation art and was able to transform into a human. However, he must never let others know that he had not only reversed the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation art, he had also created another body of truth. Within the Celestial Lake Palace, the silhouette of the Great Rock and Qing'er descended onto the ground. Fairy Qingmei instantly appeared, staring at the Great Rock and Qing'er with a smile on her face. Qing'er had already told her about the secret art of reversing the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation art. Fairy Qingmei naturally felt gratified in her heart. "Wentian, I've already found the location of those from the White Deer Institute and the Zone clan." Fairy Qingmei stared at the Great Rock as she spoke. "Senior, I'll need you to help me investigate the other transcendent powers of the hidden faction. I'll mark their locations on the map. Also, I'll be rebuilding my sect, and I'll need Senior's guidance." Qin Wentian spoke to Fairy Qingmei, his words causing a brilliant light to flicker in Fairy Qingmei's eyes. It seemed like Qin Wentian had already made his preparations. He had already started planning, gathering all the powers of the hidden Azure faction. This matter still needs to be discussed at length. Safety needs to be the first priority. After all, even if all the powers of the hidden Azure faction were added together, they still wouldn't be able to match up to a transcendent power. Fairy Qingmei stated, "I understand. Hence, the power I'm going to rebuild will be a brand new power, and won't have any connections with the previous ones. This is why we need to conceal ourselves from the public. and proceed in a stealthy manner. Qin Wentian nodded. Seems like you already have a plan. As for the location of the sect, you can consider the Celestial Lake Palace. It's the safest place. Fairy Qingmei suggested. Here are the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia. Senior, you can pass them to the leaders of the White Deer Institute and the Zong clan, allowing them to accumulate their strength and develop further. When they see the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia, they will naturally understand my intentions. Qin Wentian took out the divine steel and passed it to Fairy Qingmei. He had absolute trust in Fairy Qingmei. For the sake of the Azure Emperor, she would definitely do this. Fairy Qingmei stared at Qin Wentian as a smile appeared in her beautiful eyes. Being able to hand over the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia to your subordinates, your courage and resolution is even higher compared to the Azure Emperor back then. If this matter were to spread out, the White Deer Institute and Zong clan would both be in danger. The leaders of the White Deer Institute and Zong clan would naturally know what to do. There's no need for us to worry about them. If Senior were to consider betraying us, not only me, Senior wouldn't spare them either. Qin Wentian casually stated. Fairy Qingmei nodded her head. That was indeed the case. However, after conversing with Qin Wentian today, she could see that after experiencing so many things, Qin Wentian's personality was gradually changing. However, the stubbornness in his heart had never wavered. I need to enter closed-door seclusion. Not only that, it's hard to estimate how long I'll need. Qin Wentian stated in a low voice. The great Nirvana immortal art, using the art of nirvanic rebirth to form a body of truth, wasn't something that could be achieved so easily. Only after a long period of time would one be able to form a perfect body of truth. Now that he had transformed into a great rock, the amount of time required would be even longer. I'll help you. Qing'er spoke in a low voice, her words causing Qin Wentian's eyes to widen as he stared at her. Upon seeing Qing'er's cold expression, a warm smile appeared in his eyes. Qing'er, you have to cultivate as well. I'll make sure everything is in order. Fairy Qingmei shook her head. Wentian, just stay here and cultivate. I'll make sure nothing in the outside world will disturb you. Qin Wentian nodded his head. Qing'er, let's go. Fairy Qingmei spoke to Qing. Qing'er cast a glance at Qin Wentian before nodding her head lightly and departing together with Fairy Qingmei. Very swiftly, this area was completely sealed off. Silence filled the air. Not a single sound could be heard. Qin Wentian stretched out his talons, retrieving the golden page once more. Great Nirvana immortal art. A terrifying gleam of sharpness flickered in the eyes of the great rock. His gaze was incomparably sharp as he stared at the heavens. Qingcheng, the great rock murmured in a low voice. Within his eyes, snowflakes drifted down. Beneath the ancient tree, that empire-toppling young lady smiled sweetly, causing the heavens and earth to lose their color. Qin Wentian, who had transformed into a great rock, started his closed-door seclusion. However, the flow of time wouldn't wait for him. In Grand Xia, there were still major events happening every day. As for Qin Wentian and Mo Qingcheng, they no longer appeared in Grand Xia. This caused the spectators to sigh. Did this pair of stunning beauties vanish just like that? Yet another year passed. Many major events occurred in this year. But the one that attracted the most attention was still the rise of the younger generation. In the previous ranking battle, there were many outstanding characters that were constantly advancing, surpassing those of the previous generations. Not only that, for those who had yet to enter the Heavenly Fate rankings, there were also many characters that rose up. And the most dazzling of them all was none other than Hua Taishu. He was only 30+ years of age and had already stepped into the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper, defeating several 5th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns. He was like the sun in the sky, with no one in the same generation as him being able to stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Not only that, he unceasingly surpassed those of the older generation, and was hailed as the #1 genius in Grand Xia in the past 100 years. In the future, there was a high chance that he would be able to step into celestial phenomenon. Other than Hua Taishu, Chan Wang from the Chan clan, Shi Patian from the Shi clan, and Ouyang Quangxing from the Ouyang aristocrat clan were all extremely powerful as well. But the most eye-catching was a transcendent power that stood aloof from worldly affairs, the unmatched realm. Leaving aside the fact that the unmatched realm had accepted many disciples from the transcendent powers, Even those who weren't from the transcendent powers also had shocking achievements within the unmatched realm. Qin Zheng, Yunmeng, Chu Meng, Fan Lu and the others all gradually stood out. When they roamed the outside world, they would often make enemies out with those from the transcendent powers, showing no mercy at all. Hence, they were all wanted by several transcendent powers. But the most eye-catching was none other than Bai Qing from the Mystic Moon Hall. Back then during the Heavenly Fate rankings, when Bai Qing called out Winti and Gij, it was unknown how many hearts were broken. Now, her devil art seemed to have evolved to an even stronger level. She was akin to a devil that walked out from the depths of purgatory, akin to a death god in the darkness of the night. The Pill Emperor Hall, Chang Clan, Wang Clan, Star-Seizing Manor, and other transcendent powers had all been killed by her in the darkness. She herself had also been ambushed a few times and suffered heavy injuries. But every time she would be lucky enough to escape, continuing her slaughter with no fear of death. This caused her to become a thorn in the eyes of many transcendent powers. And all of this, the young man who was still in closed-door seclusion in the Celestial Lake Palace had no idea. Chapter 436. In the Granxia Empire, 2 years and 9 months had already passed since the last Heavenly Fate ranking battle. This meant that there were only 3 months left before a new Heavenly Fate ranking battle would be held. But now there was a slight change in the ranking battle. Once, the location of the Heavenly Fate rankings was in the ancient kingdom of Granxia. Sounding the drums, crossing the river of life and death, ascending the battle platforms, entering the Vermilion Bird formation, seizing ancient luck and obtaining the secret arts. But now, the Vermilion Bird formation was no longer the same as before. It was actually controlled by the Purgatory Vermilion Bird, the Vermilion Bird of ancient luck. Because of this, the transcendent powers of Ginkgo announced that the Heavenly Fate ranking battle would be held in the Venerate Heavens sect. Not only that, because of the lack of ancient luck, the 36 transcendent powers of Granxia would each take out an extraordinary treasure to bestow upon the 36 rankers of the Heavenly Fate ranking. Hence, after 3 years, the Ginkgo continent of Granxia was once again filled with waves of commotion. It was unknown how many young geniuses had entered Ginkgo, but because of the glory of the previous Heavenly Fate ranking battle, although the spectators were all excited, they didn't think that the ranking battle this time around would surpass the previous one. 2 years ago, the Heavenly Fate ranking battle was a golden age. Terrifying characters like Qin Wentian, Chan Wang and Xiqiong appeared. And during this period of time, the situation in Ginkgo was exceptionally chaotic. Experts from the Pill Emperor Hall, Chang Clan, and Hua Clan were hunted down one after another, causing the spectators to feel the undercurrents of the undercurrents. And finally, on a certain day, an earth-shattering battle occurred in Ginkgo. After Bai Qing killed an expert from the Hua Clan, she was intercepted by Hua Taishu. Although Bai Qing was powerful, she ultimately wasn't a match for Hua Taishu. At this moment, Ouyang Guangxing, Chu Meng, Fan Lu, Qin Zheng, and Yun Mingyi all appeared, joining forces to fight against Hua Taishu. The geniuses of the 2 Heavenly Fate rankings engaged in an earth-shattering battle. It was just that Hua Taishu had entered the Heavenly Fate ranking earlier than them, and was also the top ranker of the previous batch. The strength of one's cultivation base could easily make up for the disadvantage in numbers. Hence, even though many geniuses joined forces, they were still heavily injured by Hua Taishu. But in the end, Hua Taishu was actually poisoned. No one saw who the culprit was, and no one knew where the poison came from. Because of this, the fear in the hearts of the crowd grew even stronger. There was only one name in the crowd, Mu Feng. These familiar names, after a lapse of almost 3 years, when the next Heavenly Fate ranking was about to be held, once again appeared in the eyes of the masses, and directly caused a huge uproar. The experts from the Hua Clan and Chang Clan arrived, but the experts from the Mystic Moon sect, Ouyang Aristocrat Clan and Zhang Clan arrived as well. Both sides had no way to come to an agreement and an intense battle ensued. The battle between the 5 transcendent powers ended in a tragic ending as everyone retreated. However, that oppressive aura enveloped the entire Ginkgo, as though a tempest would erupt at any moment. Not only that, from this battle the spectators could see many things. The relationship between the Ouyang Aristocrat Clan and the Zhang Clan was getting closer and closer. Evidently, this was because of the upcoming wedding between Ouyang Guangxing and Jiang Ting. From this, one could see how high Ouyang Guangxing's status was. Most probably, he was already being nurtured as the successor of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. At the same time, this battle caused the spectators to think of another name. The previous top ranker of the heavenly fate ranking, Qin Wentian, where was he now? Bai Qing, Ouyang Guangxing, Chu Meng, Fan Lu, Qin Zhang, Yunmengi, Mufeng. These geniuses all stood together because of Qin Wentian's existence. If Qin Wentian was here, what kind of scene would the battle between him and Hua Taishu be? That young man whose achievements were even more glorious than Hua Taishu's. Whenever the spectators thought of the battle between him and Hua Taishu, their hearts would involuntarily surge with emotions. However, such a battle was something they would never be able to witness in their entire lives. Although there were people who said that Qin Wentian, who had transformed into a great rock, hadn't died yet and might appear again one day. But as time flowed by, the majority of people no longer believed this. The majority of people all believed that back then in the Pill Emperor Hall, Qin Wentian had truly died, with not even his bones remaining. Bai Qing, Ouyang Guangxing, Fan Lu and the rest would also think of Qin Wentian. This was especially so after the battle with Hua Taishu. Every time they stared at the skies, they couldn't help but to ask themselves, was he still there? Far away from Ginkgu in the demon region of the desolate forest, a raging wind gusted by. Amidst the misty clouds, a great rock could be seen flapping its 3,000-meter-long wings, traversing a distance of 10,000 meters in an instant. On the back of this great rock, a handsome young man could be seen standing there with his hands clasped behind his back. His eyes were immeasurably deep, and there wasn't the slightest bit of aura exuding from him. However, the moment one laid their eyes on him, they would never be able to forget him. The great rock soared through the skies like a bolt of lightning, arcing through the vast territory of the demon continent. A day later, the great rock arrived at a city in the moon continent that was under the jurisdiction of the star-seizing manor. This city was merely a small one. 2 years ago, a transcendent power arrived here. Although they kept a low profile, the strength they displayed occasionally caused the hearts of many to tremble in fear. This transcendent power was none other than the White Deer Institute that was expelled by the star-seizing manor. They moved to this small city because they wanted to avoid calamity and at the same time, develop themselves. Over a year ago, Fairy Qingmei personally arrived and delivered the 9 ultimate arts of Granxia to the White Deer Institute, causing the doyens and patriarch of the White Deer Institute to be incomparably shocked. At the same time, they also received the news that Qin Wentian was still alive. They naturally understood the meaning behind the 9 ultimate arts. This was an opportunity for the White Deer Institute to develop further, but it was also an opportunity for them to be filled with courage. Over the past year, the White Deer Institute selected core disciples, silently nurturing them. At the same time, for those of the older generation who were absolutely loyal, they were allowed to choose the ultimate arts that were suitable for them, allowing them to develop in peace. As for the ultimate arts of Granxia, they were not allowed to be used in public. The White Deer Institute was waiting for the arrival of the young man, who had once single-handedly ascended the Pill Emperor Hall. At this moment, in the training grounds of the White Deer Institute, the atmosphere was extremely lively. Many young men were sparring with each other. Bai Lui was present as well. Currently, her cultivation base wasn't weak either. She had already broken through to the 9th level of Yuanfu. Silently observing the young men of the White Deer Institute, she couldn't help but think of the young man she once knew. At this moment, a raging wind gusted by. The spectators turned their gazes over only to see a terrifying great rock descending from the skies. In an instant, the entire training grounds were engulfed by the raging wind. The spectators couldn't even stand stably as they hurriedly shielded their eyes. An instant later, when the wind calmed down, the silhouette of the great rock hovered in the air above them. Its gigantic body blotted out the sun, and its sharp eyes swept over the crowd, exuding a majestic aura akin to a sovereign descending from the heavens. Great rock. Upon seeing the great rock, the eyes of the crowd gleamed with sharpness as their hearts pounded. Bai Luyi's beautiful eyes shone with a brilliant light as she stared fixedly at the silhouette of the great rock. Had he really transformed into a great rock? Was he irreversible now? The raging wind gusted by as the experts of the White Deer Institute arrived. The elders of the various transcendent powers were all present as they stared at the great rock. Inclining their heads, they discovered that there was actually a young man standing on the back of the great rock. Although he was blocked by the great rock's gigantic body, the crowd couldn't help but to exclaim in admiration when they saw the aura he exuded. Why had the great rock brought him here? Who was this young man? At this moment, Bai Lui slowly walked forwards, arriving below the great rock. Stretching out her hands, she wanted to caress the great rock's cheeks. The sharp gaze of the great rock remained. It didn't move to stop her. Bai Lui's soft palms gently caressed the great rock's cheeks. Yet the great rock didn't evade, appearing exceptionally calm. Little E. A voice rang out from the great rock's mouth, causing Bai Lui's palms to tremble violently. Her eyes reddened as she stared at the silhouette of the great rock. Had he really become a demonic beast? Are you all right? Bai Lui asked, her voice trembling. I'm fine, the great rock replied. After which, he turned his gaze onto the others, his countenance turning sharp. At this moment, the young man on the great rock's back slowly walked to the side of the great rock's head. He then spoke, from today onwards, I will be in charge of the White Deer Institute. The gazes of those from the White Deer Institute froze as they stared at the young man before shifting their gazes onto the great rock. The great rock nodded, from today onwards when you see him, it's the same as when you see me. His words are my words. The crowd was filled with bewilderment. They didn't know who this young man was, to actually be able to cause Qin Wentian, who was in the form of a great rock, to hand over authority to him. My name is Ditian. From today onwards, I can announce to everyone in the White Deer Institute that all of you are descendants of the Azure Emperor, Ditian. Not only that, I, Ditian, will subjugate the Azure faction, merging them into a brand new transcendent power. From today onwards, all of you will have nothing to do with the White Deer Institute, and you must not reveal the existence of the Azure faction. I want a brand new transcendent power to emerge in Grand Xia. The figure on the back of the great rock slowly spoke, his tone incomparably arrogant. He actually wanted to create the 37th transcendent power? His ambitions were extremely great. When those from the White Deer Institute saw the great rock calmly watching everything unfold, they instantly understood in their hearts that the 9 ultimate arts that Fairy Qingmei had sent over were finally going to be executed. The White Deer Institute would vanish from the long river of history. This transcendent power, which had never caused too much of a commotion before, was about to disappear with the wind. Select the 3 strongest experts to come up and follow me. Ditian spoke again, his tone as tyrannical as ever. The patriarch of the White Deer Institute nodded his head, and very swiftly 3 old men were selected as they mounted the great rock. As for the others, head to the Demon Mountain City and head to the Celestial Lake Palace where Fairy Qingmei is located. Remember, break up into small groups and wait for me there. That brand new transcendent power will be established in the Celestial Lake Palace, Ditian commanded. Ditian spoke once again. Immediately, the wings of the rock flapped, and in an instant, it soared into the sky and disappeared into the clouds. Bai Lui's beautiful eyes flashed with a deep sorrow, as the memories of the past flashed through her mind. However, when he transformed into a great rock, his personality seemed to have changed as well. Could he still return to the past? Chapter 437. In the Grand Xia Empire, the great rock soared through the skies, traversing through countless territories in just a few days. The great rock in the clouds wanted to be the king of the skies. How terrifying was its speed! Even the winged dragon of the 9 heavens wouldn't be able to compete with it in terms of speed. After meeting with those from the White Deer Institute, Ditian entered the base of the Zong clan and brought Zhongyi and the other 2 experts onto the great rock. Ditian was naturally none other than Qin Wentian. It was just that the great rock and Qin Wentian couldn't appear at the same time. Hence, he used the secret art he obtained from Difeng to change his appearance. As to why he was named Ditian, it was because the Azure Emperor's surname was Di, signifying that he was the successor of the Azure Emperor. The word Tian was derived from the middle and last character of Qin Wentian. As for the Ditian now, he was completely the same as the Qin Wentian of the past. He wasn't an avatar, but his true body. This was the tyrannical technique of the great Nirvana immortal art, using the great rock to undergo nirvanic rebirth, manifesting a true self-body. Regardless of astral soul, cultivation base, bloodline, or even personality, Everything was the same as the original body. There were no differences at all. The Ditian who had undergone nirvana was none other than the Qin Wentian before he transformed into the Great Rock. However, his cultivation base had already risen to the second level of Heavenly Dipper. After cultivating the Great Nirvana immortal art, Qin Wentian also knew how terrifying this art was. To be able to materialize a true self-body, it wasn't an avatar. How heaven-defying was this? No wonder Qing told him not to reveal this. At this moment he was thinking, what price did Qing pay exactly to obtain such a heaven-defying immortal art? Sadly, the Great Nirvana immortal art could only be used once. If he wanted to materialize another time, he would truly die. Standing on the back of the Great Rock, Qin Wentian stared down at the sky. In front of him there was a towering ancient mountain that pierced through the clouds. He glanced at the map in his hands and with an intention of his will, the Great Rock flew down from the sky. Ditian and the Great Rock were both in their true bodies. Although they could cultivate in different directions, their hearts and minds were connected. They were two people, but at the same time they were one person. The wind howled, and in an instant, the Great Rock landed at the foot of the ancient mountain. Qin Wentian raised his head and looked ahead as he spoke. You guys wait here, Great Rock, follow me up. Qin Wentian spoke. Immediately, he and the Great Rock walked towards the ancient mountain. They didn't fly in the air, instead they walked towards the top of the ancient mountain step by step. The path up the mountain was rugged, but to stellar martial cultivators, it wasn't difficult at all. Although Qin Wentian was slowly ascending, his speed wasn't slow at all. A human and a demonic beast soon arrived at the peak of the ancient mountain. Over there was a simple and crude house. Outside the house, an old man clad in tattered robes quietly sat on the ground, his face facing the sky. Qin Wentian and the Great Rock stood beside the old man, not saying anything. The old man also quietly sat there with his eyes closed, as though nothing had happened. After a long time, the old man's lips moved as he spoke. Since you're here, why aren't you speaking? My name is Ditian. Qin Wentian took out the Azure Emperor medallion as he slowly spoke. The old man fell silent, an instant later, he opened his eyes as he stared deeply at Qin Wentian and the Great Rock, before turning his gaze back to the Azure Emperor medallion. After which, he stood up and entered the house. Not long after, he walked out again, carrying a bundle on his back. I heard that the punishment faction has experienced a great change in the past 1,000 years. Now there's only one person left, yet he is still waiting here. Ditian admires him greatly, hence he chose to walk up the ancient mountain. Qin Wentian slowly spoke. Walking up the mountain was a sign of respect. Although there's only one person, it's still a part of the punishment faction, passed down from generation to generation. Until now, the lightning punishment scepter is in my hands. Now, I'm willing to follow the young master of the D clan. The old man bowed to Qin Wentian. Momentarily, Qin Wentian nodded his head lightly. He turned and mounted the back of the Great Rock as he spoke. Let's go. The old man was still clad in a coarse hemp robe. He slowly walked up the back of the Great Rock. The Great Rock spread its wings and soared downwards, descending the ancient mountain in an instant. Those from the White Deer Institute and Zone clan stared at the old man. They didn't know of the existence of the other party, and right now they couldn't help but to seriously scrutinize him. Upon seeing the long bundle on the back of the old man, their countenances all changed after hearing the stories of the Azure Emperor Palace being passed down through the generations. Zhongyi asked, "Are you from the punishment faction?" The old man glanced at Zhongyi as a sharp gleam of sharpness flickered in his eyes. After which, he nodded his head lightly. Seems like the sword sect is still the same. Let's go. Qin Wentian's voice was as calm as ever. Everyone mounted the back of the Great Rock as they soared up into the air. Although the expressions of those on the back of the Great Rock were calm, they were all filled with shock in their hearts. After Qin Wentian passed the authority over to Ditian, it seemed like Ditian was preparing to replace Qin Wentian to take control of the Azure Emperor Palace. Ditian wanted to unify the various hidden factions in the shortest amount of time possible. The Great Rock soared up into the skies once more. Before this, Qin Wentian had already asked Fairy Qingmei to investigate the situation of the various hidden factions. If not, he wouldn't have known that the punishment faction had encountered such a huge change. Now he only needed to hold the Azure Emperor token in his hand and head there to take over the reins. The spirit continent was located in a remote corner of Grand Xia. The terrain here was extremely complicated, and the environment was extremely harsh. There were many treacherous grounds surrounding the spirit continent, and hence, the people within the spirit continent were all extremely valiant. Under such a harsh environment, it was easier for them to grow. In the northern region of the spirit continent, there was a world of ice and snow. This world of ice and snow was incomparably vast, and was known as the Arctic ice region. There were many treacherous grounds within, but for those who loved to cultivate in the mandate of ice and snow, this place was like a paradise to them. The Ice Spirit sect had a history of over 1,000 years in the Arctic ice region. The founder of the sect was a group of women, and gradually, the sect grew to a point where there were over 10,000 members. However, because the Ice Spirit sect had always kept a low profile, and had never provoked any other powers, they stood aloof from worldly affairs, and only focused on nurturing their own strength. Hence, although there were many powers that feared the Ice Spirit sect, because of the principles of the sect, none of them dared to make a move against the Ice Spirit sect. In the boundless Arctic ice region, numerous ice palaces could be seen. Many female cultivators could be seen walking about, and all of them were clad in thin clothing, as though they weren't afraid of the cold. "Senior sister, look up there." At this moment, a female cultivator inclined her head and stared at the sky. Her beautiful eyes froze as an expression of shock appeared on her face. Above the clouds, there were actually 8 silhouettes descending from the skies, flying in the direction of the Ice Spirit sect. The person in the lead had an extraordinary demeanor. The 7 cultivators behind him all exuded the aura of experts, giving off a feeling that they were invincible. "Quickly report this to the sect." The silhouettes of these female cultivators flickered, and an instant later, the silhouettes in the air landed on top of an ice statue, following which more and more silhouettes appeared, and all of them were female cultivators. The Ice Spirit sect cultivated a cultivation art that was only suitable for females. "Who are you all?" At this moment, a middle-aged woman glanced at Qin Wentian and the others as she asked, "Where is the sovereign of the Ice Spirit sect?" Zhongyi indifferently replied. His voice was calm, yet it was filled with sharpness, as though a surge of sword might permeated the air. "Sir, what business do you have with me?" At this moment, a silhouette drifted over from afar. Qin Wentian and the others turned their gazes over, only to see a female cultivator clad in snow-white robes slowly walking over. This female cultivator looked extremely young, only around 30 years of age. Her skin was as smooth as water, yet she exuded an intense coldness. "Azure Emperor." Qin Wentian's lips trembled as he transmitted his voice into her ears. Instantly, Bing Yuchan's countenance abruptly changed as she spoke, "Follow me." After speaking, she turned, as Qin Wentian and the others followed behind. Bing Yuchan brought them to an ice statue. This ice statue was extremely lifelike. It was actually a beautiful woman. "Is this the ancestor of the Ice Spirit sect, Bing Ling?" Qin Wentian glanced at the ice statue as he asked. The ancestor of the Ice Spirit sect couldn't forget the death of the Azure Emperor. Hence, she ordered her descendants to transform her body into an ice statue and place it here, engraving this enmity in her heart. If there's a day when the descendants of the Azure Emperor come here, they would personally destroy this statue. From then on, the Ice Spirit sect would no longer worship the ancestor, Bing Ling, and would only follow the descendants of the Azure Emperor. Bing Yuchan faintly spoke. Qin Wentian took out the Azure Emperor token. Bing Yuchan scrutinized it before bowing. "Bing Yuchan greets young master." Senior Bing Ling's feelings for the Azure Emperor can be witnessed by the heavens and earth. Qin Wentian continued, "As long as this ice statue isn't destroyed, it will remain here forever. Choose the strongest 3 from the Ice Spirit sect and leave with me. After that, hand over the matters of the sect to those who can be trusted. Order the Ice Spirit sect to disband and head to the Celestial Lake Palace in the vast forest outside the Demon Continent. Fairy Qingmei is there." Upon hearing the name Fairy Qingmei, Bing Yuchan's countenance changed. But soon after, she nodded her head lightly. "I will arrange it right away." After waiting for a period of time, Bing Yuchan arranged everything properly, after which she stood up together with Qin Wentian and soared into the air. When she saw the great rock, her eyes narrowed as a resplendent light gleamed in her eyes. However, she didn't ask too much. After mounting the great rock, Qin Wentian spoke, "My name is Qin Wentian. I'm sure you already know the true identity of the great rock. He is the true successor of the Azure Emperor, but now that he has transformed into a great rock, I will handle everything. There's no distinction between us. However, you have to remember, this matter is not to be leaked out of the sect. It's fine as long as the various branches of the Azure Emperor know of it." "Yes." Bing Yuchan nodded her head in agreement. Qin Wentian didn't continue speaking. This trip could be said to be extremely smooth. The Ice Spirit sect didn't say anything and directly handed over the authority to the Azure Emperor. One of the reasons for this was because of their loyalty to the Azure Emperor, but another reason was because the people he brought along with him were all extremely powerful. If it was the same as back then when he entered the Moon Continent alone, entering the White Deer Institute, there wouldn't be such a situation. In the Grand Xia Empire, there was a country named Sky Thunder Country. Although this country wasn't part of the 9 continents, it was still a country with considerable power. Especially the royal clan of Sky Thunder Country, the Sky Thunder Aristocrat clan. Previously, this country wasn't the Sky Thunder Country. But 800 years ago, the Sky Thunder Aristocrat clan suppressed the royal clan, and after a great battle, they seized the country back into their hands. Only then did the Sky Thunder Aristocrat clan change its name to Sky Thunder Country. And in the 800 years of history, the Sky Thunder Aristocrat clan annexed 3 other countries, causing their strength to grow even more tyrannical. The royal clan of Sky Thunder was also extremely powerful. They recruited experts from all over the world and had many Heavenly Dipper sovereigns. Today in the Sky Thunder Country, a few uninvited guests arrived. After Qin Wentian and the rest arrived, they didn't directly head towards the royal clan of Sky Thunder Country. Instead, they first went to the ruins of the Sky Thunder Aristocrat clan. Staring at the ruins that had been completely razed to the ground, with not a single person remaining, a cold light flashed in Qin Wentian's eyes. Among the hidden factions of the Azure Emperor, some of them had already been destroyed. Now, other than those he had already subdued, there was only the Sky Thunder Aristocrat clan left. However, it seemed that the Sky Thunder Aristocrat clan didn't follow the Azure Emperor's will and wait here. Instead, they were plotting to grow stronger, and the Sky Thunder Aristocrat clan became the Sky Thunder Country. As for the ruins on the map of the Azure Emperor token, there was actually no one left behind. This indicated that they treated the Azure Emperor's will as nothing, and the inflated Sky Thunder Aristocrat clan now had the ambition to soar higher and higher. Chapter 438. Zhong Yi's eyes flickered as he spoke in a low voice. The Sky Thunder Aristocrat clan seems to have violated the will of the Azure Emperor. How should we handle this? Thousands of years, who would be able to keep their promises? If the Azure Emperor was still here, he would surely feel gratified in his heart. The Sky Thunder Aristocrat clan was plotting to expand. Although they were in the wrong, their actions were pardonable. Uncle Zhong, follow me to the royal palace. As for the others, don't show yourselves for the time being. Let's see what attitude the Sky Thunder Aristocrat clan has towards the successor of the Azure Emperor. Qin Wentian slowly spoke, as the others behind him nodded their heads in agreement. Although Di Tian was arrogant and frivolous, he was also extremely open-minded. Let's go. Qin Wentian and the rest departed, moving towards the royal palace of the Sky Thunder Country. The royal palace of the Sky Thunder Country exuded a majestic aura. Standing outside the palace, there was an ancient pathway leading to the inner palace. Outside the city gates, there was a group of armored soldiers standing guard, exuding a sense of imposingness. Behind the city gates, there was also a 100-meter-tall watchtower. Standing on top of the watchtower, one could see everything in the surroundings. At this moment on the ancient pathway, 2 silhouettes could be seen walking towards the royal palace. Although their steps seemed slow, they soon arrived at the entrance of the royal palace. Halt! Upon seeing Qin Wentian and Zhong Yi nearing, a soldier brandished his spear and pointed it at Qin Wentian and Zhong Yi. However, at the same moment, the silhouettes of the 2 silhouettes flickered as they vanished like a raging wind, directly soaring through the air, entering the royal palace in the blink of an eye. On top of the watchtower, lightning flashed as the sound of muffled thunder could be heard. Within the royal palace, several imperial guards madly sped towards them. Qin Wentian and Zhong Yi continued walking forward. When the soldiers arrived, Zhong Yi walked to the side of Qin Wentian as a surge of sword intent abruptly gushed forth from him. Instantly, a stifling sword might enveloped everyone. Nobody dared to act recklessly. Who are the two of you? This place is an important location of the royal palace of the Sky Thunder country. If there's anything, please report it to us. A governor stood out, blocking the path of Qin Wentian and Zhong Yi. I want to see the heavenly thunder monarch. Qin Wentian calmly spoke. Zhong Yi was still behind him. A terrifying sword might landed on the commander's head, causing cold sweat to appear on his forehead as his countenance turned pale. So strong as a commander of the palace, with the cultivation base of the Heavenly Dipper realm 5th layer. It cannot be said that it is not powerful, but the sword intent of Zhong Yi makes him feel suffocated. He watched as Zhong Yi walked forward step by step. Finally, his silhouette flashed and he dashed away in an instant. More and more experts appeared, but no one dared to block the path of Qin Wentian and Zhong Yi. Not long after, Qin Wentian stepped into the depths of the imperial palace. A group of people appeared in front of him, led by a young man and a young woman. The young man was handsome, wearing a golden crown and luxurious clothes. The young woman was beautiful, exuding a luxurious aura from head to toe. When she smiled, there was a hint of seductive charm, which was fascinating. Behind the two of them there was a group of experts. The auras emanating from their bodies indicated that they were all extremely powerful characters. Why are you still not kneeling after seeing His Highness? An old man with a cold gaze berated Qin Wentian and the young man. His voice was filled with rage, and as he spoke, a long spear actually appeared in his hands, shooting straight towards Qin Wentian. Zhong Yi waved his hands as a sword light flashed, shattering the long spear. He then coldly spoke, "Let the heavenly thunder monarch come forth to answer." Shameless boasting. The other person coldly spoke, staring at Zhong Yi. Although this person's cultivation base was high, his tone was a little too arrogant. He actually wanted the heavenly thunder monarch to come forth? As for the prince, he had a smile on his face as he faintly spoke. "The two of you must be guests from afar. Please state your purpose clearly so that I can entertain the two of you." "You are the prince of the heavenly thunder monarch?" Qin Wentian stared at the young man as he asked. Yes. The young man similarly stared at Qin Wentian. He wanted to know the identity of these two uninvited guests, to actually dare to barge into the Heavenly Thunder Royal Palace. "Azure Emperor." A voice directly rang out in the ears of the young man. The smile in the young man's eyes finally changed as his pupils contracted. But an instant later, he regained his composure as he stated, "The two of you, please." After speaking, he stepped aside, his actions causing the people around him to be filled with bewilderment. Why did the prince suddenly become so polite? Qin Wentian and Zhong Yi didn't hesitate and directly walked forward. When the young man saw them walking past him, he commanded in a low voice, "Seal the entrance and exit of the Heavenly Thunder sect. No one is allowed to enter." After speaking, he instructed some of his subordinates to stay behind while the others followed behind him. Qin Wentian and Zhong Yi were brought to a public square in front of an ancient palace. This place was quiet and tranquil. It was suitable for them to do some things. At this moment, there weren't many people following behind the prince of the Heavenly Thunder country. Only 3 remained. However, the sound of footsteps could be heard from afar as another group of experts arrived. They all turned their gazes onto the prince as expressions of bewilderment could be seen on their faces. "You actually know of the secret between the Azure Emperor and the Heavenly Thunder country?" The prince stared at Qin Wentian, his voice filled with coldness. The countenances of the people in the surroundings all changed as shock could be seen on their faces. They stared at Qin Wentian and Zhong Yi, their gazes filled with coldness. "Those from the Heavenly Thunder country, listen to my command." Qin Wentian retrieved the Azure Emperor token and stretched out his hand, displaying it to the eyes of everyone present. Momentarily, the countenance of the prince changed, but it was as though he had already guessed something. In an instant, his countenance returned to normal. The shock on the faces of the others was even more obvious. That was the Azure Emperor token. Father isn't here yet? That prince didn't bother with Qin Wenqian's words, as though he was mumbling to himself. The Azure Emperor has already fallen for so many years, yet there are actually people who dare to borrow the Azure Emperor's name. They truly deserve death. As the sound of his voice faded, an intense killing intent flickered in his eyes. The Heavenly Thunder Country had been established for 800 years, but there was one thing that had been weighing down on their hearts. And that was none other than the Azure Emperor. As members of the hidden bloodline of the Azure Emperor, they had received orders to wait for the successor of the Azure Emperor. But as the Heavenly Thunder Country grew stronger and stronger, they became even more arrogant and bossy. They were the rulers of a country, yet they wanted them to submit to the successor of a dead man? How could they be willing? Today, the successor of the Azure Emperor had finally appeared. Since this was the case, they might as well make him disappear forever. Impudent! Zhongyi stepped out as a terrifying sword might gushed forth. However, at the instant he stepped out, the people behind the prince all stepped out at the same time. They were all powerful experts, and it was clear that they were prepared for this. They had all communicated with the prince through voice transmissions. Are the others also planning to rebel against the Azure Emperor? Qin Wenqian swept his gaze over. For some unknown reason, although the cultivation bases of these people were higher than Qin Wenqian, when their eyes met Qin Wenqian's, they could feel a coldness radiating from him. It was as though those eyes of his could penetrate through their hearts. The word he used was rebel. If the Heavenly Thunder Aristocrat clan was like the White Deer Institute back then, although they weren't willing to submit, they still treated the Azure Emperor with respect. However, this prince who was used to power and authority didn't merely refuse to listen to the Azure Emperor's orders. He wanted to silence the Azure Emperor. A dead man actually dares to use the word, rebel? How laughable. The seductive young lady beside the prince leaned on him as she giggled. Her smiling eyes didn't have the slightest bit of respect for the Azure Emperor. She even used the word dead to mock the Azure Emperor, not to mention submitting to him. Shut up. The prince faintly spoke, but he didn't use a berating tone. Instead, he calmly continued, the Azure Emperor is a character of the Azure Emperor's generation. He must be respected. It's just that these people are trying to borrow the Azure Emperor's name. That's why they are so hateful. Oh, I got it. The young lady continued giggling. The two of them basically didn't have Qin Wenqian and Zhongyi in their eyes at all. Although Zhongyi was extremely powerful, since he was already here, it was impossible for him to walk out of his Heavenly Thunder Imperial Palace. Not long after, more experts arrived. Most probably, those who knew the secret of the Azure Emperor were all invited here. Qin Wenqian extended his perception outwards, and as expected, he discovered that this entire area had been sealed off. There was an ancient gate outside, and there were experts guarding it. At this moment, how could Qin Wenqian not understand the situation he was in? However, he didn't say anything, and only stood there quietly waiting. He wanted to see if those who knew the secret of the Azure Emperor would all have the same attitude. At this moment, an imposing man appeared. This man had a crown on his head, and when the crowd saw him, they all bowed slightly as they greeted, Your Majesty. The middle-aged man inclined his head, as his eyes instantly landed on Qin Wenqian and Zhongyi, exuding an imposing aura. Qin Wenqian similarly stared at the middle-aged man, not saying a word. Kneel down. Beside the middle-aged man, two experts roared as they took a step forward. A tyrannical aura erupted forth, pressing down on Qin Wenqian, causing Qin Wenqian to feel a terrifying pressure bearing down on him. If there's anyone else who acknowledges the Azure Emperor token, kneel before it and pay your respects to the Azure Emperor. Qin Wenqian once again took out the Azure Emperor token. However, who would be willing to admit it? The entire public square was filled with silence. No one bothered with the Azure Emperor token. Although there were some who respected the Azure Emperor, under the current circumstances, no one dared to stand out and oppose the Emperor of Sky Thunder. Everything would have to depend on his attitude. Let me take a look at the Azure Emperor token. The Sky Thunder Emperor faintly spoke. Qin Wenqian waved his hands as the Azure Emperor token landed in his hands. Such a scene caused the Sky Thunder Emperor to be stunned, as a hint of trepidation flashed in his eyes when he stared at Qin Wenqian. Being able to become the Emperor of the Sky Thunder Emperor, it was obvious that he was a scheming character. Seeing that Qin Wentian wasn't flustered at all, and even dared to hand over the Azure Emperor token without hesitation, he couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. Where did this token come from? We still need to investigate. Not to mention, your identity is still unknown. Why don't you stay here for a few days? The Sky Thunder Emperor calmly spoke, his eyes fixed on Qin Wentian, as though he wanted to see through him, to see through Qin Wentian. With the Azure Emperor token here, I order all of you to kneel before me within 10 breaths of time. Qin Wentian stared straight at the middle-aged man with his hands clasped behind his back. His voice was filled with arrogance, causing the countenances of the spectators to stiffen, not knowing where this person got his confidence from. That flirtatious young lady giggled, as though she had just heard the funniest joke in the world. Sir, are you joking with me? The wariness in the Sky Thunder Emperor's heart increased several notches when he heard Qin Wentian's words. I'm not joking, there's still 7 breaths of time. Qin Wentian coldly spoke. The spectators all laughed coldly, while the prince and the flirtatious young lady had unbridled smiles on their faces. However, just when they thought that Qin Wentian was a fool, a pudong sound abruptly rang out as someone actually knelt on one knee. I'm willing to obey the will of the Azure Emperor. Your subordinate pays his respects to the young lord. Royal uncle, you. The countenance of the prince abruptly changed as he stared at that person. Pew, following which 6 to 7 people successively knelt on one knee as they spoke in a clear voice. Your subordinate pays his respects to the young lord. This scene caused the prince and the young lady beside him to be dumbfounded, as expressions of disbelief appeared on their faces. You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.